Hello everyone. So, are you ready to dish out some mean words? Yet again, on this fine Saturday evening, for me at least. Anyways, what's up? Today we're gonna watch a couple of videos. The first one of which is gonna be Jay's reviews. Deadlocked video. What is going on here? Which I'm hoping is gonna be fun. I mean, yesterday we had Golden Bolts, which is basically just very surface level. But hey, whatever. Then we're gonna have a look at, let's see, what did I have on this slate? Jay's reviews, Networks, I think it was. Some Call Me Johnny, and then finally Exo Paradigm Gamers. Hey, IGP, whatever. I love being a turtle. Oh my god, I'm the first comment. Yeah, definitely your comments from like yesterday too, which is cool. Anyways, I've been wondering. You mentioned something about you criticizing King K in the comment on the Odyssey video. I got curious, so I tried to find the video in question, but I couldn't. So, what did you say? And in which video was it? You can feel free to link it in chat if you can. I'm not sure what the rules are. Did King K review God of War? Actually, you know what? I'm gonna oh, I did not mean to Google it, but okay, whatever. So if I click here, this is gonna come up in my my log, and I can watch it later. It's a bit too long to explain in chat, but basically it has a pretty bad take on combat. I think, now that you mention it, I think I've watched that video. And it made me kinda want to do a God of War review myself, or like an analysis, because of all his weird takes. King K is just sometimes just not very. He has weird. He has like the most milquetoast takes, but then he comes out of left field with like weirdest shit imaginable. I don't know. Is this something I'm just have fooled myself into thinking? But I seem to remember he had a section in one of his Sonic videos, I think, where he just out of nowhere goes, "By the way, I don't like Trump." For some reason, I think it was when he was talking about the story in Sonic Adventure 2, but I could be wrong about that. Is that just some kind of Mandela effect or something? Speaking of King K, you hear he got engaged. Oh, well, good for him, I guess. Also, hello to Breeze. How nice of you to join me this weekend as well. I did not hear. I think he has me blocked on Twitter. So, yeah, and I don't really keep track of whatever he is doing anyways. I was surprised to see him in your video with another terrible take. Maybe he has those more often than I remembered. Well, I don't know. It just, like I said, he has the most milquetoast opinions, and sometimes he just comes out of left field with like some unhinged, like, raving. Wait, really? What did he do? Okay, so you guys remember the whole Hogwarts Legacy controversy? And that streamers got harassed for playing the game. Essentially, he tweeted. I feel like I remember the Trump comment too. Yeah, see? But I couldn't find it in any of his videos. That was like supposed to be like one of the biggest moments about my critique. I was gonna say something like, yeah, it's so typical. Who would have thought that King K of all people would just randomly insert his opinions when they don't have any context with what he's talking about, or something like that. And then I was gonna play the Trump clip. But anyways, yeah. So it was at Hogwarts Legacy streamer drama stuff, and he managed to tweet out that he never saw anyone harassing streamers. And then I just kind of went off on him in a reply, just calling him an idiot, essentially. Because he had apparently done a quick search and didn't find anything. When you had people like girlfriend reviews being harassed to the point of being falsely flagged or whatever. It was a shitstorm back then. And it was really funny. So after that, he blocked me. And I immediately just noticed a complete lack of negativity in my Twitter feed from that point on. It was almost kind of absurd. Damn, indeed. I really wish I saved that Trump comment, though. Just for future reference, you know? He probably went back and just deleted it, like in the YouTube editor or something. Because there's absolutely no trace of it. And not even in his CC, the closed captions. I couldn't find it. Because you can bring up like the closed captions on the side here, and then you can Control F, search for it. Was it in his Breath of the Wild? I don't know. Maybe it was. It might have been. I guess the reason I'm thinking it was the Sonic Adventure, one of the Sonic Adventure videos, is because, well, the president of the United States is there, or whatever the country it's supposed to take place in. But whatever, nothing was lost with having King K block me. Absolutely nothing. I didn't even mention it until I realized that his whining had stopped, and I stopped seeing weird retweets and quote tweets about how stuff is so unfair to other. He was kind of a keyboard warrior. Don't know if it's still like that, but I don't know. Just got a bad taste in my mouth after that. And it's like he would usually just make knee-jerk responses to stuff without doing even a single bit of research. And like for me, the harassment thing was kind of what broke the camel's back, so to say. But whatever, it's all in the past. That was not why I tore into him in the Odyssey video. I just thought his take was completely unhinged. Anyways, let's start doing what we're here for, to make fun of people and their Ratchet Deadlocked opinions. Weirdly enough, with Deadlocked, there aren't that many, like, polarizing opinions at all. People like this game, and I was not really prepared for that. I thought we would get a bit more diversity, because well, it's almost kind of like a spin-off, right? But people love it, and it's been kind of hard finding not only videos talking about Deadlocked, but also videos that go into some kind of detail. It sold well, as far as I understand. So why there aren't more people talking about it, I don't know. Maybe they just dismiss it as a spin-off and then go about their day. Who knows? Anyways, this is Jay's reviews. The video itself is 2 years old. I think this is the newest video on the list for today. Most seem to like it, but not nearly as much as the trilogy from what I've seen and heard. Yeah, which is why it's so weird that most videos are so positive. It's odd. Anyways, let's just start the video, and then speaking of Jay's buds with King K, I believe. Yeah, Jay's buds with him, and Exo Paradigm Gamer is also buds with him, I think. Let's just start the video and
hey everyone, thanks for clicking on this video. If you weren't aware, this review of Ratchet Deadlocked follows the videos I've done in the original Ratchet & Clank trilogy, so if you missed those, it's definitely worth catching up. If you were a part of my Patreon, you could have seen this video several weeks ago, as it was finished before my review of Ratchet 1 even dropped. Right now, you can join for as low as $1 and get the final review in this series, Ratchet & Clank Size Matters. But if we reach $200 a month, that will be followed by a re-review of Secret Agent Clank. Having said that, let's just get into the video.
Wonder if he ever got to that point.
This is a game I have a lot of nostalgia for. There was an ad for this game on the reverse side of the manual for Ratchet 3, and back in 2008, I had that on the floor where I played games.
Dude, that is so wild. Imagine having an ad for a completely new game on the back of the manual of a new game. Like, I know that the turnover rate is really short when it comes to the Ratchet games, but like, this is insane. I guess it might have been like the greatest hits thing or whatever. Unfortunately, he put a hold on his Patreon a year ago. Is it because he stopped uploading or something? He has 240,000 subscribers.
For all the long time
no. And his videos still get a decent amount of views, right? So why? Maybe he didn't want to review Secret Agent Clank. Maybe he was coming up to the goal. Anyways. Yeah, okay, so I'm gonna have to write that down in my notes. Imagine having... Where was it? Right. Imagine having ads on the back of the booklet for a new game. Of the booklet of a new game for a new game in the same series. Yeah, I'm gonna word that better later, but whatever. Mostly to do with him struggling on how to handle the rewards he would offer. Yeah, see, because that my stance on that is just, if people want to support, cool. I don't really feel that obliged to give out stuff other than early access to videos and shit. It's basically, you should have some kind of incentive, right? But I don't know. I have a full-time job. This is mostly, no, it's not mostly, it's all on a hobby basis. So yeah, 24 hours a day just isn't enough to have a job, do YouTube, editing, writing, all of that, and also make extra content for the people who want to subscribe to you on Patreon. So that's why I'm thinking it should just be something you subscribe to if you just really want to give the extra support. I'm not blaming anyone for not. But whatever.
Games, and I was asked if I had that one or not, and I just said no. Lo and behold, I get this game for my birthday a couple weeks later. By this point, I was a solidified fan of the series, having played the crap out of Ratchet 2 and 3, and now I had gotten another game to add to that list. Ratchet Deadlocked has always been a game I liked, having played it several times now, with it completing my trinity of Ratchet. 2, 3, and Deadlocked, my 3 favorite games in the series. However,
fuck you.
Deadlocked from the offset was in a much different position going into it than any of the previous games.
One is
I
obviously
mentioned in the
the
last
best.
video and in other videos that third entries in video game franchises are usually more well received than those of movies. But it is worth mentioning that not every franchise follows that basic progression of the first game introduces concepts, the second game fixes what didn't work, and the third one refines all those elements. I mean, Devil May Cry's second game is a disaster that plays nothing like the first one, so the second one
game?
is basically
There was
DMC3.
no second Devil
Some
May Cry
older franchises
game.
jumped to 3D a couple of games in, like Zelda or Metal Gear, and they were able to continue expanding upon that in the coming games. My point is just that when doing video games, it's often more clear for the people behind them how they should go from game 1 to 2 to 3 than it is in movies. But that model I just mentioned does describe the Ratchet and Clank trilogy to a T, which leads into Ratchet Deadlocked and the thing the video is named after, the fourth game problem. This is something I'd say a lot of developers experience.
What?
By the time you reach game 3, especially...
That's not the title of the video. It's what made Ratchet Deadlocked so great. Maybe he changed it later.
Especially in a series that has stayed consistent from the start, you have to ask what exactly you can do to keep the series fresh, since recycling the third game over and over is probably not going to work. For the Ratchet and Clank series, Up Your Arsenal had the most refined combat controls and storytelling the series had seen, and as far...
I'm sorry. Did you just say that Up Your Arsenal had refined storytelling? Oh, Jesus Christ.
As far as PS2 games were concerned, that was about as good as it was going to get. So for the last Ratchet and Clank game Insomniac did for the PlayStation 2, they decided to shake it up with Ratchet Deadlocked. A game you can probably tell is much different from the offset, given the fact that Clank's name got dropped from the title. Something that the Jak and Daxter series did when it wanted to go for a darker approach in Jak 2. Of course, it should go without saying that I'm playing the game on the PlayStation 2 once again, although I got pretty scared at first because the game crashed twice in my first 30 minutes of playing, once when creating my save file and the second time when selecting
Never change your title if you're going to reference it. Yeah.
Catacrom 4 for the first time. But after that, it was smooth sailing. I didn't bring attention to the HD collection in the Ratchet 3 video because I didn't think it was necessary, since all the major gripes were brought up in the videos in Ratchet 1 and 2. For Deadlocked, I think it's worth mentioning once again because this game wasn't even on the HD collection, it was just the original trilogy. Although, to apologize for the second delay of the PS Vita port of Ratchet Full Frontal Assault, fans who bought the game expecting to have Vita crossplay features got a PS3 HD port of Ratchet Deadlocked for free. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I will lament the fact that Ratchet 3's excellent story and gameplay improvements took away what we liked about Ratchet and Clank. Yeah, weird how that works, right? Truly the most excellent story, especially the Quark stuff.
Sure.
Just peak Ratchet and Clank, dude.
They were planning on doing Deadlocked HD the whole time or not, or just rushed this out because of that Full Frontal Assault Vita delay. But either way, Ratchet Deadlocked HD exists on PS3, and I'd say it's the worst of the 4, and one of the worst PS2 HD ports I've ever seen. No Comic Sans text in this game, but the cutscenes have been fundamentally ruined because the in-game scenes are constantly skipping frames and it looks really jittery. Then there's what they did to Vox's teeth in this scene, and Ratchet's face in this scene, or Ace's visor in the cutscenes, and that's basically all I need to really say it sucks. And
yeah, but that's basically all that happens. I feel like people overplay the graphical glitches and issues with the HD port. It slows down a lot, which is the only gameplay thing that happens. Other than that, it's cosmetic, and especially in cutscenes. I've almost died 2 times or something from jitter during when you jump off grind rails for some reason. Oh, hey, Clay. Okay, who took my Switch again? Well, Salty's not here this time, so it has to be someone else. Oh, okay. IGP took it. Still can't help but laugh at your reaction to Goldie saying that in his video on 3. Yeah.
While I feel like that's a harsh statement, it's how I feel. Like I had said before, I've never made a video game remaster in my life, so I'm sure the time and budget constraints are tough to deal with. In fact, this is why I'd never want to make a video game for a big company if my life depended on it. But still, I have a choice between playing the game on PS2 and PS3, and I'm gonna go with PS2 where it has the usual progressive scan and faux 16:9 options I brought up 2 videos ago. This game was actually one of the reasons why my original retrospective used the HD collection, when I did all PS2 footage for the old Sly and Jack videos. And the reason given was because my discs for Ratchet 1 and Deadlocked just did not work on PS2. You could ask why I didn't just replace them, and the answer is that I was 15 and had no fucking money. Damn, I do not miss that. I mean, it was a crowning achievement when I got $60 to spend on a used copy of Metal Gear Solid: The Twin Snakes back in 2016.
What does this have to do with Ratchet?
And I still have that to this day. I actually got these new copies of Ratchet 1, Deadlocked, and I believe Up Your Arsenal at the Too Many Games convention in 2016.
Force Gang.
Good memories, I must say. Anyway, I'm getting off topic like I always do. Let's dive into Ratchet Deadlocked. The game begins after the events of Up Your Arsenal with...
Okay, is this going to be just a story summary? Probably. Well, let's give him the benefit of the doubt.
Ratchet, Clank, and Al taking care of the Starship Phoenix when they're suddenly captured by a host of an illegal combat sport in the Shadow Sector called Dread Zone. The show is based around capturing heroes and making them fight through a horde of enemies and the lethal exterminators consisting of Shellshock, Reactor, the Eviscerator, and the former galactic hero Ace Hardlight. Ratchet, Clank, and Al form Team Darkstar alongside their new combat bots Merc and Green. Ratchet has to do this one alone, with Clank helping him over the radio and Al doing robotic repairs for the combat bots. Dread Zone is run by Gleeman Vox, owner of the Vox News Network.
Okay, but you can at least comment on the story beats. Even if you're just reading this from, like, a paper, just reading the summary, you can at least comment on the story bits, right?
Who will do anything for ratings, including sacrificing the lives of anyone who works for him. And that includes the contestants on Dread Zone, as the game opens with a hero, Captain Starshield, being killed by Ace Hardlight, and now it's up to Ratchet to survive the gauntlet and escape. This game is pretty hardcore, and that doesn't just stop at the premise. The music is the usual Ratchet style of sample mixing, but this time it just has this edge to it that makes it a blast to listen to both in and out of the game.
Yeah, it's got a good point about the music being good, but this isn't the usual. This is more reminiscent of 1, I think. Hold up. No? Maybe? That depends on what you're saying next.
I felt the music showcase was necessary this time, as I think the tone of the soundtrack is just a part of showing this game's identity. In general, the game is very slick.
Am I crazy, or did he not delace the footage?
Just look at the HUD, black and red, much better than that orange abomination from Ratchet 3. But if you don't like that, you can change the color of the HUD in the extras menu.
Yeah, it's good. Did he not delace the footage?
Black goes good with just about any Solid: The Twin Locked, and I believe Up Your Arsenal at the Too Many Games convention in 2016. Good memories, I must say. Anyway, I'm getting off topic like I always do. Let's dive into Ratchet Deadlocked. The game begins after the events of Up Your Arsenal.
Whatever. Premise. Now it looks fine. Oh, maybe
I felt the music showcase was necessary this time, as I think the tone of the soundtrack is just a part of showing this game's identity. In general, the game is very slick.
Yeah,
just look at the HUD, black and red, much better than that orange abomination from Ratchet 3. But if you don't like that, you can change the color of the HUD in the extras menu. Black goes good with just about anything, but I decided to keep it themed to my channel and made it green. Green isn't even my favorite color, but it works for today. To be able to change the color of...
Right as he starts to talk about the story, look at the logo and how it's flickering.
Locked. The game begins after the events of Up Your... Locked. The game begins after...
Oh, yeah.
Locked. The game... 2016.
No, I think that's,
Locked.
because this is a cutscene, I think. But yeah, it looks really bad. What? No, it's the text too. That should be part of the UI that's rendered.
Too Many Games convention in 2016.
By the game.
Good memories, I must say. Anyway, I'm getting off topic like I always do.
Yeah, look, everything
Let's
is
dive into
flickering.
Ratchet Deadlocked. The game begins after the events of Up Your Arsenal with Ratchet clanking
weird.
out.
Maybe maybe that was just footage from before he went into the options or something. I don't know.
Better than that orange abomination from Ratchet 3. But if you don't like that, you can change the color of the HUD in the extras menu. Black goes good with just about anything, but I decided to keep it themed to my channel and made it green.
The colors in Deadlocked is leagues better than Up Your Arsenal's use of color. Yeah, you can even change the HUD, like right here. The XP bars and health bar is green.
Green isn't even my favorite color, but it works for today. To be able to change the color
and
of the
even
HUD,
just the levels look so much better.
First, unlock that feature.
Like they have actual different colors instead of just the brown.
With skill points, something I haven't really mentioned thus far in the series.
Oh, it probably is. It did mention having progressive scan earlier. Yeah,
basically like modern day achievements where you get skill points for doing specific in-game activities and challenges.
Not like you could have gone back and recaptured the footage or anything, right?
Something Insomniac started in the Spyro games that made its way into Ratchet and Clank. Like on Iridia from Ratchet 1. You get a skill point for making it through these grapple points without touching the ground. These usually aren't an important part of the game for me, but they are in Deadlocked, as I'll spend the early game doing as many of them as I can, like going through the whole mission without using a particular weapon, or shooting down this many cameras because doing that will unlock the helmetless Ratchet skin. Ratchet's new armor in this game looks pretty cool, but the fact that it...
Okay, so he doesn't mention the one thing I have a problem with when it comes to skill points, which is that they're not really skill points anymore. They're do random stuff points. That doesn't really require very much skill. And I think this is a byproduct of them not having hidden collectibles in the levels in this game. So instead they just kind of dropped a bunch of skill points in there, because there's like 15 for each different location. And a lot of them you just end up getting out of nowhere. Like at one point I think I got like 10 skill points without even looking up the list. And in no other game is that the case. Like you're not gonna just stumble into a skill point in 1, 2, or 3. More accurately, the colors in Doubles of Deadlocked is leagues better than Up Your Arsenal. Again, I have to ask, why do so many people consider Rack 3 to be the best in the whole series? Yeah, it's so weird. I gotta go. I'll be back later, lads. Unless I forget. That's fine, dude. Thanks for stopping by. I really appreciate it.
Covers his face doesn't really do it for me. Never liked using the most expensive armors in this series since I don't like Ratchet's face being covered. For a character like Ratchet, facial expression is just a part of relating to him.
Yeah, it's so weird how they cover up his most notable features. Like, he probably wouldn't pass the silhouette test at this point without the tail. Also, what he's saying about the facial expressions, he never has the helmet on in any cutscene, so. And you don't really see his facial expressions during normal gameplay, unless you go out of your way to turn the camera around to face his front.
I mean, why do you think he doesn't wear a helmet on the box? Think of the difference between Mega Man X and the faceless Vile from the first game, and I think my point is made about what a face can add to a character. If you're wondering why I'm bringing this up, it'll be important later, so keep it in the back of your mind.
We'll see.
Ratchet Deadlocked takes the formula from the arena combat in Ratchet 2 and 3 and expands this to a full game. Each planet just serves as a place to fight enemies and do missions with bolt rewards for each one completed. You have access to about 2 planets at a time. Each planet has its own campaign and mission.
Write that down, I think. At 7 minutes in, approximately. Helmet. And lack of tail. Hurts. Ratchet's image? Sure. Thankfully, Rift Apart remedies this by making it so that armor is purely cosmetic, letting us take parts of it on or off. Yeah, that's a really cool part about Rift Apart. While I do like the armor in Deadlocked, Ratchet design in Rack 1 is, in my opinion, the best design in the whole series by far. which is really sad when you think about it. There's so much good stuff in 1, dude, that they just dropped because reasons. I don't know. And that's the best costume in Ratchet & Clank 3, 2002 Ratchet. Yeah, definitely.
Missions you must do, and then optional
the
ones.
The armor, I've always thought the armors look so silly. And especially in Deadlocked, it's just bulky and shit. I understand that they kind of had to do it to reduce the tries, the amount of polygons that the models are made up from, because you had to fit at 1.2 players if you wanted to do multiplayer, and the game still had to run. But yeah, it's just kind of, it looks so clunky and uncomfortable and silly.
Can do for more points. Once the 2 planets unlocked are beaten, you then gain access to the tournament where you beat one of the exterminators and get access to a new rank, a new armor, and new planets. Rinse and repeat until the game is done. Ratchet 3 was already dropping the pretense of this being a platforming series with more TPS gameplay, but Deadlocked can't be called a platformer at all, really. Each planet just sees you performing.
Wait, hang on. No, Deadlocked is way more of a platformer than 3. And that's what sucks about 2016, that you can get ugly ones and you can't even take them off. Yeah.
Tasks relating to fighting.
That's not the only thing that sucks about 2016, dude. Not by a long shot.
Enemies. On principle, I don't think Ratchet should lean into the TPS direction as much as Deadlocked does, but for one game, I think it works. And it's not even really like I miss the stuff that's gone that much. Like hacking gadgets, I don't really like playing those. Clank sections, I think those suck, so good riddance. On that note, I've come to realize what the gap between me and the people who like Ratchet 1 the most is. For me, I always felt like the weapons and combat was the best part of Ratchet & Clank, so by that metric, each game was better than the last. But if you enjoyed the planet-to-planet exploration, tough platforming, and NPC interactions, I can see why you'd be pretty let down by the likes of Ratchet 3.
Huh.
When getting into the combat itself, the controls in Deadlocked are just as good as they were in Ratchet 3, with the lock strafe mode now being the default.
Oh, right. One thing I should probably write down before I forget it. Is that there's almost no character interaction in Deadlocked. There's almost no character interactions in Deadlocked. Because even in 3, there were some. I've always wanted to make a video about why Ratchet design in Rack 1 is the best. Hopefully I can make that video sharing my opinion on that. Also, 2016 game is not a Ratchet & Clank game in my opinion. Yeah, make that video, definitely. It's a video everyone needs to see. And 2016 is just a glorified movie tie-in, basically. I mean, they even advertised it as the game based on the movie based on the game. So I don't know how much more watered out can you get than that. Maybe if they made another movie based on the game, based on the movie, based on the game. But at that point, who cares? There we go.
A control scheme. First person still exists and is probably at its most useful in this game since platforming's not really a thing this time
that
around.
Looks so
but I think
horrible.
lock strafe is superior since I get a better view of my surroundings with it. Third person's also there if you're used to the controls of Ratchet 2, but again, shooting with R1 allows you to shoot while controlling the camera in all directions. There's really no competition for that. Especially for this game where, like I said, combat is the biggest priority. The weapon roster is by far the smallest it's been in the series.
Got a point, but I still think third person has its place.
This point, but I don't think that takes anything away from the roster. The last 3 games have a bunch of weapons I don't really use that much given how powerful everything else in the game is, but in Deadlocked, they keep the roster down to only the essentials, like the Dual Vipers, the best blaster weapon the series has ever seen.
Yes, definitely.
I mean, it's got excellent damage output, a fast rate of fire, and there are 2 of them.
And dude, the sound effects from shooting it is so satisfying.
Fully upgraded, your shots will bounce all over the walls in a colorful display. It's great to use, especially with this sound design. I do have issues with some of the weapons in this game, like how the Magma Blaster is probably the weakest shotgun weapon thus far, but it still proves useful on many occasions. The B6 Obliterator is a bomb-type weapon with a more limited range than previous games that gets outclassed by the Hunter Mine Launcher later in the game, a bomb that...
Dude, what the... The Hunter Mine Launcher outclasses nothing.
locks onto enemies, and the mini turret gun takes too long to fire and
maybe
each toss,
the B11
reducing its usefulness.
B9,
But the list of
whatever.
positives for Deadlock's roster of weapons
Wait,
is
what
much
did you
longer
say
than the
about
cons
the-
list, reducing a bomb that locks onto enemies, and the mini turret gun takes too long to fire in between each toss, reducing its usefulness. But the list
Yes, finally someone who criticizes the mini gun turret. I honestly feel like you can change all the characters 2016 to almost any other characters, and the story barely would have changed if not changed at all. Yeah, but remember, we have important characters like the giant zombie dinosaur. Who are you gonna replace him with, huh? That's what I thought.
positives for Deadlock's roster of weapons is much longer than the cons list. For example, are there any Ratchet weapons nearly as fun to use as the Scorpion Flail? It's a ball and chain that you smash onto the ground and it destroys everything around
the Ratchet. Hey Sammy, what's up?
You. It's so much fun to use to the point where its singular function never gets old. Or take the fusion rifle, for example.
Oh my god, is he about to speak positively about the fusion rifle of all weapons? Hey, brain-eating zombie T-Rex. And then he's like, just kidding. That didn't happen. What has my favorite game become? Dude, I was so mad the first time I saw that cutscene.
Everything great about the Flux rifle from Ratchet 3, just with an aiming reticle, making it the ultimate weapon of destruction, which is something funny I noticed. In my review of Ratchet 1, I praised the fact that the weapons stay useful for the entire game, but then in my review of Ratchet 2, I praised the early weapons being outclassed by the later ones, forcing you to buy new ones. But then Ratchet 3 finds a more balanced middle ground, and I praised that. In that game, I praised the sniper for not having a reticle, and now here I am praising Ratchet Deadlocked for having one. It sounds like I'm just tripping over my old statements, but in reality, Ratchet 1 had a system that was working, but then Ratchet 2 made it better, and then Ratchet 3 made it even better, and now
I'm gonna have to watch that again. What did he say? Okay, fine. Killjoy. I hate the fact that Quark is like playing the part of unreliable narrator and just making stuff up. It's just ugh. I might be in the minority here, but I really like all of the weapons in Deadlocked, despite flaws with some of the weapons. I really like most of them too. Some of them make more sense in a PvP. I talked about this last stream, but some of them make more sense in a PvP environment, like the Hunter Mine Launcher and the Sniper Rifle, and the mini turret stuff. But the rest of them are really good in PvE.
To the point where its singular function never gets old. Or take the fusion rifle, for example. It's everything great about the Flux rifle from Ratchet 3, just with an aiming reticle, making it the ultimate weapon of destruction, which is something.
But what was so great about the rifle in 3 though? There wasn't anything great about it because there were no places where you could use it effectively, like maybe 1 or 2 battlegrounds. And if you couldn't one-shot enemies, you basically open yourself up to being shot from a distance. And since you have to stand still and aim the rifle at enemies to reliably hit them, the fusion rifle just wasn't used that much. I guess it kind of gets fixed by having the reticule in lockstrafe mode in Deadlocked, but like it still has the same problems. It's not really useful for how it's supposed to use. It's supposed to be a long distance weapon. Most of the levels here doesn't even spawn in enemies far enough away for you to effectively use it. So you just end up running around and no scoping or just hitting enemies which are like a mid distance away that you can hit with literally any other weapon. I might be in the minority here, but I just arrived and I don't know what is going on. Hey, Salty. Not to mention, it just blatantly spoils the fact that Quark betrays the heroes. fuck? God, don't. Stop reminding me of that awful, awful game. I don't need this today, okay?
Something funny I noticed. In my review of Ratchet 1, I praised the fact that the weapons stay useful for the entire game, but then in my review of Ratchet 2, I praised the early weapons being outclassed by the later ones, forcing you to buy new ones. But then Ratchet 3 finds a more balanced middle ground, and I praised...
What balanced middle ground is that? The weapons just fucking sucks. Like, they take a set of weapons, and then in the course of one level, completely throws them in the trash to pave the way for the new ones. And that it's like that in 2 too. Except in 3, you don't have weapon mechanics that makes up for the ones that get outdated. The arsenal is bigger. Yes. But somehow the whatever.
Praised that. In that game, I praised the sniper for not having a reticle, and now here I am praising Ratchet Deadlocked for having one. It sounds like I'm just tripping over my old statements, but in reality...
Yeah, but just look at that. Why would you use a sniper in that situation? You could just bring out one of the AoE weapons, right? Like, he just has the fucking rocket launcher on his quick select, or he could just bring out the B9. I hear a lot of people say Rift Apart is like Doom Eternal, but for kids. Honestly, I would argue that Deadlocked kind of deserves those words way more, and I'll die in that lonely hill. Doom Eternal kind of felt like it was for kids. I mentioned it on Twitter to you, Salty, but I just instantly stopped playing that game once I heard the pop sound effect that suddenly appeared when I headshotted an enemy. I got so fucking mad at that point. I was like, why did I even bother? And then they fucking took away my favorite weapon, the handgun. I'm probably the only one that actually liked that thing, but...
Ratchet 1 had a system that was working, but then Ratchet 2 made it better, and then Ratchet 3 made it even better, and now Ratchet Deadlocked finds a way to make its sniper rifle mechanics more fun than...
But the first game didn't have a sniper rifle. So, what are you talking about? The Virgin, it sounds like I'm walking back my old statements versus the chat. It's hard to be consistent between games when they find a new way to break it.
Than in Ratchet 3. The fusion rifle tore through boss health bars and regular enemies to the point where it was the weapon I maxed out the level ups for first. Although maybe...
Jesus Christ, imagine maxing out the fucking fusion rifle first.
That's because I picked the contestant difficulty. I started on the Gladiator difficulty, but then I got my ass kicked, like 3 deaths on the first real mission. I noped out of that one and went down to contestant.
I can't wait. I played the game a bit more today, but right now I'm just focusing on leveling up weapons to 99. But I can't wait to actually create a fresh save file and just go for the hardest difficulty available and get utterly destroyed, like one hit by all the enemies, even the creeps.
Good thing you can change your difficulty whenever you load your save file. It allows you to more easily experiment with it. But I mentioned leveling up weapons. Let's get back to that. The maximum capacity for level ups is level 10 as opposed to...
Admits skill issue as an argument.
5. In the previous game...
This is like the video essayist playbook. It's not your fault, but you should definitely use it as an argument for something you agree with or disagree with. The rocket launcher in Rack 1 is kind of the sniper of the game. Again, yeah, I can see that. Except it has slightly homing shots, right?
You'd get a weapon to the maximum level and then you'd stop using it because you'd rather upgrade as many weapons as you possibly can. As damage done with maxed out weapons is damage not spent on upgrades. To explain what I mean in a practical sense, in Ratchet 2 you start with the Lancer and the Gravity Bomb. I upgraded the Lancer to the Heavy Lancer by the second stage. Any enemies I killed with that upgraded version came with the cost of enemies I could have killed with the Gravity Bomb to further upgrade that one. Level 10 upgrades make your weapons feel useful for the entire playthrough as you'll never be in the position where you aren't leveling them up. This kind of sounds like I'm saying it's difficult, but instead
But it's the exact same problem, right? Sounds like we should have a list of Ratchet & Clank review cliches. A bingo card or something. Yeah. Okay, so right here he's talking about how weapons are still useful by having them level up to 10. I think Ratchet Gladiator is a short enough game that realistically you're not gonna level up more than 2 or 3 weapons to 10 by the end of it. But it still has the same issue as the other games in that it gains new functionality at V10 that makes the weapon more interesting to use. Except for the Arbiter. That one just sucks. Yeah, so the thing is, it levels up to 10, gains new features, but you don't want to use it because it's going to steal experience from the other games. Now, I'm willing to excuse this more than in the other games because of how short of a game it is. So it won't be long until you gain access to the Omega weapons and can buy those. But it's still a huge problem in the Ratchet & Clank games up to this point, which I think gets fixed in Tools of Destruction. If you make a bingo card, then free space is, I did nothing wrong with a picture of DSP on it. Dude, what a lol cow. He's the best. I actually actively used to watch DSP. Found his commentary kind of funny 10 years ago.
I'm just saying that.
Didn't they make God of War Ragnarok accessible based on DSP? Did they? Salty, you can probably answer this, right? The reason I say Deadlocked is like Doom Eternal, but for kids, are 2 reasons. First, Deadlocked is way harder than Rift Apart. Second, the OST giving you so much adrenaline during gameplay, like Eternal. Yeah, okay, yeah, I can see that. Or at least Gladiator has different difficulty levels, so you can just max it out if you want a challenge.
Smaller amount of weapons all get their time in the sun because there's no point where they won't be useful to the upgrade system since it takes longer to upgrade them all, while still being just as satisfying to do as it was in Ratchet 3. Although I don't like your upgrades not refilling your ammo. I thought that was just because Rift Apart did that, which I just played, but looking at my Up Your Arsenal footage, and that game did that as well. But that's a small issue. This game introduces the mechanics of Alpha and Omega mods for your weapon.
Don't mind. I mean, you're gonna level up so much. And I think it's a good thing that don't refill ammo, because it makes you see other weapons more, which is something I actually noticed. That weapons tend to run out of ammunition pretty fast. So you're more naturally going to be switching between weapons. Yes and no. They use DSP as an example of how intuitive their puzzles are in the God of War 2018 GDC. It's unclear if it was a diss at DSP being stupid or them grabbing a random big streamer. Gotta go, everyone. Take care and have an awesome weekend. Thank you, Lazy Clay Gamer. Have a good weekend. But Ragnarok's issue with their puzzles was confirmed by the narrative director that nobody complained about the hints during playtesting, so it went unnoticed. Huh. Yeah, are those the hints that just instantly come up almost as soon as you walk into the puzzle area? I seem to remember there was something like that.
Weapons. Alpha mods are a much simpler version of the Raritanium upgrades you get in later games. By level 10, you'll have several Alpha mod slots, and you can configure which Alpha mods your weapons will have, such as increased ammo or a better lock-on. The system is customizable and feels tangible in the game.
Oh, and remember to like the stream. Thank you.
Gameplay. Like this part in the grind rails of the planet Kronos. I was having trouble hitting these enemies with my dual Vipers because I sacrificed a lock-on.
Yeah, the ones that they blurred out way too soon. The solution is to disable subtitles and turn off dialogue audio. But like, you're turning off half of the game at that point. I did a few runs with no dialogue audio, and the music blaring at it was way more enjoyable. Does Ragnarok has that Marvel quip problem that so many modern games started to have after they popularized that kind of writing? I think it has. I think the 2019 game has that too.
more ammo, and I changed
but
it back
maybe
and I
to
was
a
able
lesser
to hit
degree.
with much more precision. Omega mods are purchasable from the shop and allow you to give your weapons increased effects, like freezing them with the freeze mod, or my favorite, shocking them with the shock mod. The shock mod also damages nearby enemies with electricity, which makes it a must-have. With Omega mods, you can fix an issue I mentioned earlier. The B6 Obliterator gets outclassed by the Hunter Mine Launcher, but you can give each different Omega mod so that the Obliterator drops fire all around your enemies, and then have the Hunter Mine Launcher turn into several smaller bombs like the Bouncer. Like I said, this game has a small roster of weapons, but all of them are useful in some capacity. But those aren't the only tools.
It does, but it didn't bother me as much since it comes from established joke characters like Mimir or Atreus being an annoying 14-year-old. Okay, yeah. Yeah, it's much worse when everyone does it. At least that's not the case. I started 2018, but dropped off pretty fast. Don't know why. I think it was because I played 1, 2, and 3 back to back and just got kind of fatigued on the series. Which is weird because 2018 is such a different game than those.
In your arsenal, though. When playing this game in single player, you have Merc and Green at your side. Normally, they just fire at your enemies alongside you, but you can command them to do things for you like turn bolt cranks, toss an EMP at turrets, or launch a grind cable with a press of a D-pad button. Once you've gotten all the weapons for yourself, you can spare some bolts on upgrades for these.
If you don't like The Last of Us or Hellblade, you won't like 2018. I have played neither of those.
These guys like better weapons, armor, or the shield charger, where one of them will put a shield around the other when he's doing a task, so the task bot won't take damage. Although buying this does make it take longer for them to hack nodes because only one of them is doing the hacking as opposed to both of them doing that. Although now you only have to protect one of them at a time, so it's kind of a trade-off, but I'd say it's worth getting. They don't do much on paper, but
doesn't really affect much. If anything, you're gonna have enemies coming at you slower because usually enemy waves are linked to objectives being hacked or bolts being cranked, but bolts are pretty much only singular anyways.
The trailer makes note of them being much more useful and powerful than the Galactic Ranger bots from Ratchet 3, and you definitely feel that. These guys even made it on the front cover of the US box art, and they were the main attraction in the commercials for the game. When one of their missions in the late game is to rescue them, you actually feel like you're weaker without them, giving the mission some urgency. This game brings the multiplayer element from Ratchet 3 back, and I can't really comment on it this time. I barely played this as a kid, and the servers are dead like I said in the last video, so I can't even play it now. But the game does have an offline co-op feature where a friend will replace Merc and Green, Jack even being playable in the co-op. One day I'd like to play this game in co-op with a fellow Ratchet.
Look at those running animations. So funny.
And Clank fan and see how much the dynamic of the game changes with that. But that's pretty much all I can say on the core
Jack
gameplay
running
loop
like
of
that
Deadlocked,
will
and
never not be funny to me.
Playable in the co-op. One day I'd like to play this game in co-op with a fellow Ratchet and Clank fan and see how much the dynamic of the game changes with that. But that's pretty much all I can say on the core gameplay loop of Deadlocked. And while it seems significantly cut back from the previous games, I don't mind it for one game. And besides that, the game also has a fully fleshed out storyline, which is not to be slept. The core gameplay loop of Deadlocked. And while it seems significantly cut back from the previous games, I don't mind it for one game. And besides that, the game also has a fully fleshed out storyline, which is not to.
You can't be serious right now. You're not honestly, you don't honestly think that this is fleshed out. Mother of God. I have no nostalgia of this, so I cannot remark. I know that's not what he says, but I wanted to make that joke.
To be slept on. The basic premise is interesting on its face, but the humor makes it even better. This game being the last Ratchet to really have this satirical sense of humor, and it's a great way for that style of writing to go out.
Like literally the only character that's fleshed out in this game is Chairman Vox. That's it.
The villain is the owner of a massive media corporation.
You can't call Clank and Ratchet fleshed out because we already know them from previous games. Al is barely in the picture at all, and you get to know absolutely nothing of the bosses. Wait, doesn't every game have a cool basic premise and humor? No, not if it's supposed to be a serious game.
as Vox has to deal with the fact that his star player, Ace Hardlight, is losing popularity because the fans think he's a douche.
Like, the only boss character you get to know anything about is Ace Hardlight. The rest of them just kind of show up and then are killed off one battle later. To say that this story is fleshed out is insane.
And because of that, he has boxes of unsold Ace Hardlight merchandise while the kids want Ratchet figures now. Since the game is framed around Ratchet competing on a TV show, the whole game is commented on by Dallas and Juanita. You could complain about them using the same audio clips all the time in gameplay.
Run, Ratchet, run! Run, Ratchet, run!
But I'm just going to headcanon that these two are just shit.
Wait, is Ace Hardlight meant to be an Ace Hardware parody? I don't know, is he? Maybe. I recently learned that Insomniac would use names of their devs for planets. And they're not above parodying people or stuff. So, I don't know. What is Ace Hardware anyways?
Their jobs and can't come up with any new commentary. But anyway, this is where a lot of the satire comes from.
Remember, I'm a filthy European. So I don't get the references. That's a hardware store in the US, so maybe.
As Ratchet keeps gaining popularity the more you play the game. So Vox News has Dallas and Juanita slander Ratchet as much as they can just to make sure the audience isn't on his side and thus prop up Ace Hardlight so they can sell more merch based on him.
This year's contestants include the notorious mafia crime boss known as Ratchet, seen here at his Mokhtar estate.
And to think that other networks actually call him a hero.
It's truly...
I always considered Ace this game's equivalent to Quark from 2002. Yeah, and he definitely is. A lot of the plot of Deadlocked is basically just ripped straight from one, I think. No, that's the girl who voices all the kids in Metro. Is it? Cool.
sad, Dallas.
After making his fortune selling cigarettes to children, Ratchet went on to pilot a tanker ship for Zexon.
A week later, Ratchet got drunk and crashed his tanker into the ocean world of Equados.
Our challenger, known for his exploits in organized crime, his dabbling in the occult, and his hatred of sunshine, puppies, and chocolates, here's Ratchet.
Similar to Ratchet 3, hero worship is a major theme in this game, told through Ace Hardlight. A rivalry between him and Ratchet is built.
Wait, was that a Simpsons character voice actor? What the fuck is this? Yeah, like, it's like voice actors work on multiple things, dude. It's insane, I know.
Up throughout the game, as Ratchet begins the story thinking that becoming a famous gladiator on this show could be cool, until he sees a former hero he once admired like Ace Hardlight gleefully getting rich off the deaths of other heroes at his own hands.
Why would a hero kill other heroes for money?
Not money, Tin Man. Fun.
I do not understand.
You traitor! Do you think this is some kind of game? That's exactly what it is, furball.
I mean, it's like the most eclectic group with those two in it. Lol. Huh.
And you're going to be the star of my highlight reel. I'll see you soon, Lombax.
This leads to a cutscene in the middle of the game where Team Darkstar tries to escape, but
That's Darren Norris, I believe. The guy that does Timmy's dad from Fairly Odd Parents. Huh. Cool. I didn't know that. Didn't recognize it because, well, never watched Fairly Odd Parents in English.
Ace himself mortally wounds Al, forcing Ratchet back into the competitions after this cutscene.
This never should have happened. It's all my fault. No, Ratchet.
What are the names of the two commentators? Dallas and Juanita.
Ace Hardlight did this, and Gleeman Vox gave the order.
They made a mistake bringing us here, Clank. Now they're gonna pay for it.
Exactly.
The game isn't hiding anything here. The characters are in a really screwed up situation, and I like that about this story. If any contestant on Dread Zone becomes uncooperative, or worse, boring, Vox has the ability to kill you with the press of a button.
Observe.
I hate this job.
You could make the case that the whole "you will die" stakes is a cheap way to up the drama without having to earn it, but in this game I think it works towards the larger statement.
Fans of Dreadzone, I share your pain for the loss of the mighty Ace Hardlight. I encourage you all to express your grief and sympathy by purchasing this limited edition Ace Hardlight Memorial Action figure on sale now for only 299 bolts.
Ace Hardlight is only a hero on Vox News because Vox wants that. Ultimately, every star in the arena is disposable. I mean, when you do beat Ace Hardlight, he realizes now that he's about to die, that Vox is just gonna throw him aside and try to make Ratchet the new star. Which literally happens.
Oh, this is the fucking worst heel turn ever. I just need to say that. Because it's true. Don't let Vox do to you what it did to me. So stupid.
The very next scene.
I'm about to offer you the opportunity of 1,000 lifetimes. I'm making you the new captain of the Exterminators, the star of the show. Think of it. We'll make billions. We'll sell Ratchet action figures, Ratchet sports shoes, Ratchet deodorant, Ratchet breakfast cereal, earmuffs and cologne, soft drinks, hard drinks, energy drinks, breath mints. You get record deals, movie rights, reality shows, video games.
Dude, imagine that. Movie rights? What? That would be insane.
And commercials.
Ace took Vox's offer of fame and fortune, tossing integrity aside, but Ratchet does what a real hero would.
No deal, Vox.
What did you say?
I'm not your puppet, Vox. You actually think I'd kill other heroes to get rich? You're not just corrupt, you're stupid.
And that at that point, you just kind of blow up the bolt thing, right? Where it reads like millions of bolts. Okay, am I wrong about both? But she did voice the Cod Macker in Eternal, so there's that. Well, people have a tendency to sound kind of similar, right?
Overall, I think Ratchet Deadlocked has the potential to be really repetitive because you just fight enemies, but it avoids that by telling a really engaging story with that great satire and point. The galaxy's not at stake in this game, it's the characters' lives, and that's just as captivating. The gameplay keeps itself fresh with a decent amount of mission variety, like destroying targets or having different conditions like a speed increase or weapons changing at random. I really liked this mission where you only had access to your wrench, and I had to find ways for the enemies to damage each other by moving in a way that would put the enemies in the line of fire of others.
Or you could just, I don't know, hit them with the wrench? Why is he complicating this stuff? It's not that hard.
Or enemies. It's a game that will more than hold your attention for its entire runtime, is what I mean to say. But I still don't enjoy.
Salty is wrong? What? Never happens. And then the Ratchet & Clank movie decided to have Ratchet wonder if he'd have a street named after him. Or even a deodorant. Oh my god. I can't believe that was a thing. Where's the humor in that? And like, there's no way that was a reference, right? Maybe it was. Which is kind of cool, but don't make me think positive thoughts about the Ratchet & Clank movie, please.
Vehicle sections that much. The hover ship, the Puma, and the hover bike are fine to use, although turning was really awkward since each one uses
Ratchet thinks he's Martin Luther King Jr. Confirmed.
The twin stick setup as opposed to buttons being how you control the vehicles, but I just enjoy playing the regular missions more because I can upgrade my weapons. Although you can still upgrade your HP in these missions, so that's nice. It's the Landstalker that I never look forward to using. The movement is slow, the guns aren't satisfying to use, and it's put to use in the worst missions in the game where you have to reach a certain number of targets before the
I doubt it was a reference. Would be cool. I mean, why would they have him say that though? I mean, a deodorant, it's so random.
Course is over, and I feel like you can barely defend yourself from the enemies. The only part of Ratchet Deadlocked that stands out to me for poor pacing would be unlocking the penultimate final stage, the Ghost Ship. After you take out Ace Hardlight, the game gets you hyped up for the death course in the Ghost Ship.
In accordance with Dreadzone Regulation C6-5/9, paragraph.
They likely just came up with that as a simple gag and didn't put much thought into it. Maybe. Oh well, thank you for saving me from having positive thoughts about the movie. I appreciate that.
Draft 2, Ratchet has been sentenced to meet his fate on the Gauntlet of Doom! This special event will be broadcast live tomorrow night only.
Can't think too hard about anything when you have 8 to 12 months to make a game. That's true.
On Red Zone!
But then you need a shit ton of dread points to even unlock the stage, so I had to go back to the Battle Dome and do a bunch of optional missions.
Do you just not like the game, dude? I never had that problem. But then again, I just kind of completed every dread challenge available. If anything, it best sums up where Insomniac was versus where they are now with Ratchet. Yeah, I think you have a point there.
To get said dread points. The only time I ever felt stonewalled and deadlocked.
It's like going from making fun of capitalism to actively taking part in capitalism, and the result is that your product somehow gets worse. I've been sentenced to death, but I need to charge the electric chair first. What? What is that a quote from?
But that doesn't take away from the climax feeling really intense. Since Ratchet doesn't want to be made a star, Vox keeps upping the stakes, concluding with the final levels where Ratchet, Clank, and the newly robotic Al form a plan to escape by first freeing all the heroes trapped in the station, which Vox uses as a chance for ratings as he rigged the Battle Dome to explode if Ratchet fails. Dallas and Juanita are even equipped with deadlock collars and completely go off script and root for you to win. That's good drama from a story context where the last levels were kinda lame. I mean, you go through 3 stages where the objective is the same, run through these hallways, defeating enemies and blowing up generators. Like I said before, you could say this game's repetitive, which I wouldn't for most planets, but these last levels just felt like they went on too long. Then there's the final boss, which absolutely kicked my ass.
I don't know.
Vox has a lot of attacks.
I was mostly making fun of the Ratchet has been sent into the arena. Oh yeah, but this dude had to grind more to unlock it. Oh yeah, right. That's a good one. God damn it, you're actually funny when you try, dude.
Use of all your weapons, like his lasers that I put up the hollow shield for, or his enemy spawns that I clear with the scorpion flail and do damage on Vox himself with the Arbiter, the fusion rifle, and the dual Vipers. Just feeling like I barely have enough ammo to take him down. It's a really good fight, as Ratchet leaves Vox to die in an explosion of his own making as all the heroes escape, ending Ratchet deadlocked. Of course, there's the usual challenge mode to play where you do the game again, only with added perks like a bolt multiplier. This time around you can buy Omega versions of weapons you've leveled up to 10 and upgrade them even further. The twist being that this time you can level them up to level 99. And these upgrades...
Well, that's sorry excuse for humor in Discord yesterday was, well, embarrassing.
Really fast, making you feel really powerful. Getting the dual Vipers up by like 3 levels in one mission. And then there's the super weapon, the Harbinger. This will fire several missiles into the air and have lasers rain down.
It is called the Harbinger. Is that how you say it? Harbinger? Is it not Harbringer? Yeah, man, I'd fit right in on the writing team for Ratchet and Clank. Definitely.
From the sky and do
the new games. Yes, I would agree.
Tons of damage. Although I noticed that this one starts a little weak on enemies and bosses, where it needs to be leveled up to do better damage and have more ammo. By contrast, I felt like the Rhinos were all really powerful the second you got them in the previous 3 games. However, now that we've reached the end of the video, there are some pretty interesting things to say about Deadlocked 16 years after it was released. I've always loved this game. Whenever I set out to do another replay of the classic Ratchet games, it's not even a...
Is this where the analysis starts? 23 minutes into the video.
Question about whether or not this one is included.
I think
these 4 games together represent some of my most nostalgic gaming memories. Having watched the characters grow and change with each one, and going back and replaying Ratchet 1 and seeing where the series started out. But like I said, Deadlocked is an interesting game in
but yeah, the weapon doesn't have a second R.
Hindsight, because it turns out Insomniac
which is what confused me, because I've always said Harbinger.
When speaking about this game on a dev panel in 2018, they regard Deadlocked as a pretty critical misstep for the series. I mean, these devs were so stressed out about the release of Ratchet 3, but that faith was rewarded with high sales and critical acclaim. But Deadlocked received lower scores and sales than Up Your Arsenal. It's hard to say if this was historical.
Wait, that wasn't what Goldie said, was it? Maybe he just said that it sold okay. Yeah, probably. Like Harbinger of the End Times. Yeah, I've always thought that was Harbinger. Because it brings about the end times, right?
Revisionism or not, but it's the only official source in existence, so I'm gonna have to believe it. The way they see it, Deadlocked was an attempt to grab interest.
Like a Metacritic of 81 is still really good.
Existence, so I'm gonna have to believe it. The way they see it, Deadlocked was an attempt to grab interest based upon the 2000s trends towards things being darker. This is why I brought up Jak 2 earlier, as you could say not having Clank with Ratchet in gameplay is a part of that effort to look more serious, as is covering Ratchet's face like he's the Master Chief or something. When I play Deadlocked, I don't feel like its tone is that much of a departure from the previous ones, although I guess you could say the satire is more cynical on Deadlocked than it was in Up Your Arsenal, but I feel like you could make the same case for Megacorp in Going Commando. I don't know, it was just something I had never considered prior to hearing them say that. Whether they're right or wrong about what caused Deadlocked to do worse than Ratchet 3, it did lead them to believe that experimenting with Ratchet's formula was a mistake, or at least experimenting without a few key elements. They looked at Up Your Arsenal and made a checklist of things the series needed to be a true...
This is interesting. In where was the planetary exploration in Up Your Arsenal? And it's so funny how they have Captain Quark as its own little checkbox, as if he's so important. Stylized rich detail and vibrant visuals. Yet again, not something I think of when I think of Up Your Arsenal. Shooter, and yeah, shooter platforming balance. No. It's not really that balanced. Looking it up etymologically, Harbinger comes from herbergier, from French, someone who provides lodging, more or less, and the bringer similarity is coincidence, also high, I suppose. Hey, Pholidia. Huh, that's interesting. From French, and it's just a coincidence. Dude, language is cool. Does Rack just have that issue where the players are somehow dumber than the franchise itself? Depends on who you ask, I guess.
Ratchet and
They must just think whatever involves traveling around levels counts as planetary exploration and not the set of challenges you're left with in Gladiators. Yeah, maybe.
Blank game going forward. Captain Quark humor being one of those things that Deadlocked did not have.
Okay, yeah, because it feels like Deadlocked is a bit more linear than 3, but like, I don't know, there's not that much exploration in 3 either. Because so far, most of these reviews have been like, yo, Quark is here, guys. Claps. Yeah.
Right? Even though, again, in my opinion, I don't really feel like
I mean, I think the worst part is when people praise Dr. Nefarious as being a good villain. That's the worst part.
Deadlocked loses anything. I don't feel like Captain
Quark is fine. Except when he's being reduced to a bumbling moron. But Quark can be funny. The only thing Nefarious does when he tries to be funny is scream at the top of his lungs. Because YouTube humor for 2015 is back.
As a place in this story.
Yes.
But knowing their perspective on this explains pretty well why Tools of Destruction, the next game Insomniac did, turned out the way it did. It was trying to be like Ratchet 3, but in HD with a more cinematic story. So in a way, Ratchet Deadlocked and the fourth game problem led to Tools of Destruction and the consequences that game...
Quark was there in Gladiators, saved up sparingly for one of the best gags in the series at the very end. Yes, I agree. Most of these reviewers seem like millennials, so I think that checks. Loud is funny. I'm a millennial. I never thought Loud was that funny. Except in, very carefully crafted instances.
Game caused the series for years to come, because Tools of Destruction itself was a direct response to Deadlocked. But I'm never going to hold that over this game's head because I think it's a lot of fun and has everything I liked about the previous games, and its own unique identity, which makes it an easy choice when I think of games to replay. But that's enough for today. We're almost done with the re-review series, as next week we're going to be covering Ratchet & Clank Size Matters, which you can get right now for as low as $1 on Patreon. If not,
oh damn, you can buy the game on Patreon? Didn't know that.
Next week. Thanks everyone for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Must be a US millennial thing then. I don't know. Maybe.
Ratchet, Clank.
I'm like on the tail end of the millennial generation though. So maybe there's something there too.
Hey, Captain Quark. There's a nasty rumor going around about heroes being kidnapped. But don't worry, it's baloney. I mean, come on. Nobody came to capture me, right?
I love this sound clip so much.
Heroes without Captain Quark. Ha! Well, anyway, you guys missed the last 3 meetings of the Quark Cadets fan club. But don't worry, I've got extra copies of the newsletter, and I even saved some of the snacks. Hope you like custard.
Just rounds it off
everyone,
with that fucking custard thing. All right, that was Jay's reviews. What do we think? I was born in '99, so I'm a purebred zoomer, hence why my jokes suck and have zero effort out into them. Zoomer humor is some of the worst humor, though. Jay used to be the kind of review YouTuber who would script all segments in all caps and raises his voice when recording the lines. Not anymore, though. Good, so he learned. This was an okay video, I guess. A lot of summarizing, though not as many deep opinions, mostly surface level, really. And like calling the story fleshed out, just kind of no. No. H-bomber guy moment. But yeah, go subscribe to his Patreon so that we can finally get that re-review of Secret Agent Clank, please. Yeah, I find it weird that he called the story fleshed out and proceeded to have absolutely nothing to say about it. Ew, yeah. That was Jay's reviews. We have 3 more videos on the docket. I was thinking maybe we should save the longer one for last. So let's cleanse our palate with What Made Ratchet Deadlocked So Polarizing by Natquirks. The only video I found that even mentions this.
From the makers of Ratchet and Clank.
Let's see if it turns up on the streaming software. It did. Good. Natquirks, a relatively small YouTuber. This is the newest video I think we're gonna watch today. Posted 1 year ago. Or more specifically, the 15th of January 2023. That's cool. You gotta watch some small YouTubers too. It's not like their opinions are undeserving just because they're small. Right? This is a 7-minute video, so it's gonna be over pretty fast. But it seems like more of an opinion piece that's gonna delve into the sentiment around the game, especially at release. I don't know. He did reach his goal for that re-review, although I don't know whether or not you'll be tackling those PSP games anytime soon. Probably not Secret Agent Clank. I will be doing Size Matters after this, though. Definitely.
Ratchet and Clank Going Commando and Ratchet and Clank Up Your Arsenal comes the next groundbreaking.
Also, this game has a nice radio voice, this deep, manly radio voice, and I enjoy it. I enjoy listening to it. Yeah, I support smaller creators than myself, like you. Yeah.
Into
Let's see, how do you ban people again? Also, are you working your way up to drift apart? You mean rift apart? If you mean rift apart, then yes, I am slowly working myself up. You see, I have this thing where I need to do stuff chronologically. So yeah, I'm just starting at 1, working my way up. I tried playing that game earlier this year when it came out on PC, but my graphics card couldn't handle it for some reason. It just kept crashing. So yeah, whenever I do Rift Apart, it's going to be my first time playing through it. Well, most of it.
The series, Ratchet Deadlocked.
In that case, you'll likely be reacting to half of Goldie's and some Call Me Johnny's vids on those games since they cover both games each. Yeah, probably. Don't miss the Cliff Racer cameo at the start of the game. Oh yeah, right.
Hey, Ratchet.
After getting abducted and forced into the Dread Zone, Ratchet, Clank, and Al must all fight for their lives or die trying. The title Deadlocked.
I thought Saint Giub annihilated all the Cliff Racers though. Maybe one Cliff Racer escaped into the Ratchet and Clank universe.
The way comes from the collar attached around Ratchet's neck, which at any time could explode. Originally, I thought this game was the first side game in the series, but according to Insomniac's website, Deadlocked is part of the main series. But I will say that this is the
BRB, had to shower. Understandable.
First time that we have seen Insomniac strive from the beaten path of the prior 3 games. You should have noticed
showers
in the title
are good
that is
indeed.
simply
Welcome
called
back,
Ratchet Deadlocked.
While
Clank
IJP.
is featured in
Jesus
the series,
Christ, am I ever
he is no more of a side character,
going
just
to be
like
able to
Al
pronounce
or
that.
Captain Quark, who, by the way, is a man.
I'd love a crossover side story where Cliff Racers infest the galaxy like the second coming of the Krogan Wars. You know what the Krogan Wars is? Anyways, yeah, that would be cool. I guess.
Before diving even further into the game, though, I must give credit where credit is due, regardless of the game's reception. It takes a lot of balls to change things up like they did after the success of the first 3 games. Insomniac willingly took this risk.
I think Shrimp say IGPay the first time he said my name too. IGPay. Yeah. So glad I'm not the only one who can't say IJP properly. I need to stop and think.
Which in the gaming industry nowadays doesn't happen anymore. With that being said, however, loading up this game for the first time in many years was just as jarring as it was back in 2005. The prior 3 titles brought with them different UIs, but not only was it...
Now I just call you Mexican at the risk of getting cancelled. That's a much better idea.
A different UI in Deadlocked, but the introduction of the aiming reticle. This game as well featured adjustable difficulty levels which could be changed with a simple reboot, and a story that could be completed in a co-op. The first 10 minutes of this game is a bit rough as you try and fight the urge to wonder,
I don't know.
But by pushing through that mental resistance, you slowly start to accept that this game is what it is. The gameplay loop is focused on heavy gunplay with Ratchet. Think of the past arenas, but also combined with the bigger open zone segments with objectives weaved in. Going to different planets introduce...
So how's this vid so far? We're 2 minutes out of 7 in, so unsure.
Different terrain and enemies, but the objectives in each are pretty streamlined. You may have to take over nodes or areas in general, sometimes with the use of the hover bike, hover ship, Landstalker.
I mean,
or
so
Puma.
far he's just
After
explaining
the main mission of each
game.
planet. You are also giving a few optional ones to help you earn bolts and the needed points.
Which is like, so many people fall in the same trap. I mean, I did as well at some point, right? But people think analysis, game analysis, analyses is just repeating whatever happens in the game. without providing any sort of insight. And that's what's happening here.
It's to help further progress in the campaign. Overall, the areas are satisfactory enough to not feel the same, but the biggest issue is simply the missions. They are not diverse enough to make each planet feel distinguished in comparison to the previous.
So yeah, just go ahead and throw some actual analysis in there right after I said that. This guy's making me look bad on purpose.
Entries. This is where platforming.
The term video essay has wrecked the understanding of what these types of videos actually are. Yeah. Yo, stop dissing Salt Factory style. I am dissing it, but I've kind of done that myself, so probably shouldn't speak out too loud about it.
Assists with that issue. Taking the focus on weapons, we also see a smaller pool than Up Your Arsenal, which contained 20 weapons total. Deadlocked only features 10, but instead of providing the player with more weapons than they can utilize, they instead focus more so on customization. Each weapon can be customized with Alpha and Omega mods. The Alpha mods can improve the
Alpha and Omega mods. His cadence is weird. We've all done it ourselves, but not all of us learn that it's boring and try to do better. Yes, self-improvement is the name of the game. It's basically why I do everything I do.
The ammo capacity of the weapon, its aiming, or the rate of fire, while the Omega mods provide secondary effects to the weapon, such as acid, freezing, or shock. While Alpha mods are interchangeable throughout the weapons, the Omega mods are more restrictive. Luckily, tweaking your weapons can be done at any time.
No.
To fit the situation, and lets the player experiment to find out what works best for them.
Also, I think that Omega mods aren't really situational. They're basically throw one on in the weapon just to have an extra effect and then use it. I also need to head out, so enjoy the rest of the stream and don't get brain damage. Too late for that. Also, thanks. See you later, dude. Everything good, man. Just bought a new AC. Life is good. Hope these guys are better than Mario analysis. Well, I mean, the Mario videos were more polarizing, so much more fun to watch and comment on. But, well, yeah, I don't know. That pretty much sums it up.
Or their overall preferences depending on the playstyle. Also, unlike Up Your Arsenal, your weapon now has to reach level 10 before reaching its final form in the first playthrough. I will say it feels like a bit more work in order to reach level 10 compared to the previous titles, but one must also remember that the entire focus of this game is the combat. Ratchet also receives different skins as you progress through the game, but sadly there are no armor suits to purchase for him to increase his defense. Shifting over to the story...
Wait, Deadlocked... No, that doesn't make sense. That's a weird criticism to make. I never liked the armor stuff in the previous games because it just felt like it's there to make you use money. So basically you had to choose between not getting one-shotted and then having fun with new weapons. I realized that maybe they included the armor system as a way to change the difficulty, kind of. But in Deadlocked, you have a difficulty slider, or like more difficulty options at least. So, which you can turn down if you're having trouble. So having purchasable armor or damage reduction doesn't really fit into the whole game. When they have such a mechanic in place, they also have the internal or like half steps in difficulty that they implement automatically based on how you're doing, right? So yeah, don't miss armors. Never will, I think.
Was known for its darker tone in comparison to the other entries. The past titles were lighthearted for the most part, with some serious scenes here and there, but Deadlocked, from the beginning, focuses on fighting for your life. The levels, the atmosphere, even the music, all feel much more sinister. This may lead to some players feeling like the game is boring, but just like with Up Your Arsenal, Insomniac did a great job.
Yeah, see, that's what I mean with the skill points.
Like
you just kind of stumble into them, and like this kind of skill point is in like almost every level, where you just take out a bunch of enemies at once with an AoE weapon or something. Ugh, I don't like it. I want to have to solve a riddle or something to get the skill points.
Boring, but just like with Up Your Arsenal, Insomniac did a great job balancing the more serious parts of the story with some added humor.
Remind me why I put up with these morons.
Who else would watch Pox News? Temptation Asteroid? Galaxy's Funniest Decapitations?
Yeah.
Queer Eye for the Tyrannoid?
I get it.
What may make this experience even more polarizing for some players is the bomb of new characters interjected into the series, as the cornerstone ones are missing in this one. That means no Captain Quark or the plumber. There's also no Helga or everyone's favorite monkey, Scrunch.
Oh no.
But this is done.
Oh no, not Helga. How could they take out Helga? And also the plumber is like barely in the game for 2 and 3. What? I mean, returning characters is great and all, but when you don't have anywhere to use them, what's the point? I mean, that's kind of what 3 is suffering from with Quark, right? Queer Eye for the Tyrannoid? Yeah, that's a great title. Clear Eye. Well, I also thought that he said Queer Eye for a sec. Did he not say Queer Eye?
Temptation Asteroid? Galaxy's Funniest Decapitations?
Yeah.
Temptation.
Remind me why I put up
Oh,
with these
he was
morons.
just about to
Who
say
else would watch Pox News? Temptation Asteroid? Galaxy's Funniest Decapitations?
Yeah.
Queer Eye for the Tyrannoid?
No, he does say Queer Eye, dude. Definitely.
It.
I mean, it's a play on that one show, right? Who's also Queer Eye for the straight guy or something.
What may make this experience even more polarizing for some players is the bomb of new characters interjected into the series, as the cornerstone ones are
Clear Eye is an actual thing, though. Is it? What is it?
missing in this one. That means no Captain Quark.
But like Queer Eye is an actual thing too. I'm pretty sure that's a show. Queer Eye for the straight guy or something.
Or the plumber. There's also no Helga or everyone's favorite monkey, Scrunch. But this is done for a very good reason.
I'm missing none of these characters, to be honest.
As a pivoting point of the series.
Well, I never heard of this show they are parodying. Huh.
Oftentimes, games get attached to certain characters, which may help
Is it the
retain
Mandela
their current
effect? Clear Eye is eye medicine. Oh. Okay. The more you know.
fan base, but also deters future fans, as they may not want to replay all the old games just to get up to date with all the characters. Speaking of the new characters, we are introduced to Gleeman Vox.
That was never a problem with the other games, though.
In Ace Hardlight, Vox is the villain of the game who simply uses the Dread Zone as a source of entertainment and income. Ace Hardlight is your standard tool who Vox uses as a moneymaker. This is very similar in the vein of Chairman Drek and Captain Quark, but we all know Quark is at least charming. Overall, I would say
Quark is a bumbling idiot. Okay, fine, maybe he's a little bit charming. Not in 1. At least not for the most of the game.
that I found Deadlocked to be a refreshing and brave mix-up to the traditional Ratchet & Clank formula. Insomniac took a risk by removing the platforming and puzzle aspect of the series to focus on combat. Don't get me wrong, I appreciate the different vehicles and missions, but as stated before...
By the way, show us your timepiece. My timepiece? You mean my runner watch? A fitness watch? It's just a polar M. Wait, hang on. I need to go into my app to actually check this. Yeah, it's just a Polar Vantage M. Pretty standard runner's watch. Nice Rolex. Yeah, right.
It got a bit repetitive, as the game could have really used some more exploration. The gameplay loop combined with the storytelling, however, is still as top-notch as it was in Up Your Arsenal. And come on, don't tell me you didn't think shooting while grinding on the rails wasn't cool, cause you're lying. I can understand how some may dislike Deadlocked because it strays from the normal progression of the series, but I had a blast playing through it again.
Perfectly in line with the normal progression of the series.
While I do not personally hold it as high as going Commando or Up Your Arsenal in terms of replayability, I could see myself slamming it again in the future whenever I just feel like blowing some things up. I think if I played it in co-op as well, it would be a totally different experience. But the final question to answer here, is it still worth the play in 2023?
Yes!
What? That was one end of the video gag. All right, that was Natquirks. It was fine, an opinion piece. Somehow I think he was more analytical than Golden Bolts. Maybe I'm just remembering wrong. Most anticlimactic conclusion. Also, I don't think he answered the question he posed in the title. What did make Ratchet Deadlocked so polarizing? Maybe he introduced some ideas as to why, but I don't think he actually came to a conclusion. The conclusion he came to was that it's worth playing. So okay, so that's probably the shortest video we're gonna watch today. We have two more. It's Johnny's video, Johnny versus Ratchet Deadlocked, and then Exo Paradigm Gamers review featuring Nick on Planet Ripple. I think we're gonna go ahead and start with Johnny versus your boy Johnny. Yes, indeed, he's cool. I like him, but his reviews are mostly superficial. But that's fine. There's a place for that. Play Boss the Best. Looking forward to watching Exo's video again. He's one of my favorite reviewers on the platform. Although this review in particular is quite old. Yes, it's like 6 or 7 years old, and it's specifically on the PS2. So that's how you know it's old, because everyone else basically plays it on the PS3 and as the HD version. Anyways, I'm just gonna go and fill up some water. So be right back. I'm gonna harass you guys with an ad that I'm gonna make nothing off of, but it's fun. See you guys in like a minute. All right, I hope you all enjoyed that genuine Hassan Piker react moment, and we're back. Yeah, Johnny is of the old guard of gaming reviews where you get in, talk about the game, and get out quick, which has its up and downs to it. Yeah, definitely. So, I don't know if placing ads manually like this actually helps. Hassan Chair Epic, yeah. I don't know if placing manual ads like this actually helps the algorithm at all. I doubt it, but it's like, whatever, might as well try. See if there's any change in the analytics. I love looking at those numbers, by the way. Oh, speaking of, so being a small YouTuber, I obviously try to get my stuff out there a bit. So I was like, okay, let's do something I haven't done before, just to see if it has any, if it works, if it has any change in analytics and views and stuff, and discovery and whatever. So I decided, hey, okay, let's try and post my Super Mario Odyssey video to Reddit. So I went to Reddit, went to r/Nintendo Switch, made the post, posted it. 5 minutes later, they're like, hey, we're gonna delete this because you're self-promoting and you need to stay under 10% of your total posts, or we're just gonna keep removing it. So the thing is, I'm not very active on Reddit, or, well, I don't make a lot of posts. I might comment here and there. So out of my 24 total posts from, which is like over the course of many years, like 7 or 8, 4 of those were videos that I made, which puts my self-advertising percentage at like 16. So they were like, nope, no way in hell, man. We're just gonna delete this. And it's so stupid. It's probably just a bot or something, right? It just checks your post history and see if they can link your post to you and then figure out the percentage. I don't know. I just found it kind of stupid. Anyways, let's go ahead and watch some Call Me Johnny's video.
This video is brought to you by Surfshark VPN.
Not
Ratchet,
where I
it's
wanted
almost
to
pathetic
show
how
up.
easily Gleeman's goons infiltrated your...
Surfshark. Okay, see, I watched a little bit of this, just the intro, and I think this ad is a perfect example of how to do it, because it's actually pretty funny.
This video is brought to you by Surfshark VPN. Ratchet, it's almost pathetic how easily Gleeman's goons infiltrated your starship.
And he's got a
if you
point.
used the VPN, you could have probably convinced them that you were in Germany or something, I don't know. But the galaxy is not the only thing out there filled with spooky things. Your very internet is also...
When you're getting sponsored by Surfshark or War Thunder, probably never, if I had to guess.
Swarming with surveillance, web limitation, and data mining, happening all the time without you even knowing it. But with Surfshark VPN, you do have an easy one-for-all solution, and across many different products as well.
But okay, if anyone's listening, I am open to it. Maybe not War Thunder. I don't like when people who review or look critically at games take game sponsorships, like fucking Kincaid does. That ticks me off. That's so annoying. Because it's like broadcasting to the world, hey, look at me. I have no moral scruples. I'll take money in order to advertise your game and speak fondly of it. It's not a very good look for someone who talks about games for a living, is it?
Doesn't matter if you're using Windows, Android, or Apple. At the click of a button, Surfshark turns you into an anonymous and hard-to-track user, giving you more freedom on the internet, keeping you away from prying eyes, and preventing companies from doing things like geo-blocking, where video and streaming services limit your library simply because of where you live. But Surfshark makes all of that a non-issue. Start up the service, choose your location, refresh the page, and there you
Anyways,
go. Your favorite show
Surfshark, this is my gift to you. So, if you want more, call me, okay?
And those that use the link in the description below and enter the special code Johnny.
I'm back. Oh my god, who took my PS2? I don't know. That's probably worth a little bit at this point, right? Also, Salty went away, so might be him. The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist. Game reviewers without scruples. That wasn't me. Yeah, right?
Only get 83% off their initial order, but the next 3 months are also completely free. As always, thanks to Surfshark VPN for the sponsor. Thank you for supporting my channel. Let's continue on with the show.
I also fucking love this intro music. T-Lopes is a god. Oh, this one is also a year old. August 2022. So a bit older than
okay, well, my apologies for the bit of weight on this one. I had to...
T-Lopes is indeed really good. This guy is identical to Movie Bob.
Shift priorities for
maybe it's the same person.
One, due to health reasons. I'm doing fine, for the record. It's just that as you're getting older, there are things you gotta keep in check with.
Oh my god, I love people dating their videos like this, talking about health stuff.
It comes first, so...
It's like, it's an update video, but shoehorned into a video game review video.
For me on that one, that was because at the time of making this video, we just wrapped up our summer annual charity event for the guys over at the charity room. It was Charity versus Room this year, raising money for the Diabetes Research Institute, and as always, you guys went above and beyond and looking out for folks that really need it. And from the bottom of my heart, every single year I say this, but every single time I mean it. Thank you. And no, I didn't forget the headword for this video. I'm going all natural for today because my old hats are getting dusty and dirty. I didn't bother washing them in time for this video, so I'm just gonna rock the bald look. Although, as long as I've been doing this videos, like 10 years at this point for Johnnyverse specifically, I'm still looking for a replacement of that hat I used to wear. It was back in 2012, way back in the beginning of Johnnyverse's stuff, where you got the little notches and the stitching on the side. I loved that hat, and I could never find another one like it after that old hat got dirty and musty and I had to throw it away. So if anybody knows where I can get that exact make and model.
I can understand to some extent why some YouTubers take sponsorship, considering the fact that YouTube revenue isn't enough by itself, even with Patreons. Classic hat, yeah. Yeah, I understand why they take sponsorships. I just don't understand why they take money for speaking positively about a game when their entire shtick is reviewing or analyzing, criticizing games. It just throws all your opinions under the bus, like, because you've proven that you're willing to be bribed essentially into speaking fondly of a game.
Of that hat for my large ass head, for the record, I think I work a 2X for fitted caps. Please hit me up on my Twitter at some call me John, or in the comment section below. Please, I would love to get another hat like that. I really love that hat. But let's get back to business. We are now at the last of the PlayStation 2 Ratchet and Clank games. Though Ratchet and Clank isn't in the name, it's just Ratchet. Ratchet Deadlocked, and the cover is giving me some real Bomberman Act Zero vibes, which
hell yeah,
it's not that out there looking back, given that Ratchet grimacing for the cover is nothing new. But Deadlocked's cover elicits an edge that I shouldn't be terribly.
Those guns just look so Lego-like to me. It looks like those are made from Legos.
Surprised seeing if that was the intention going forward. Like, I never played the Jak and Daxter games growing up, but even I know that series became more serious as it continued. And knowing that Insomniac and Naughty Dog were buddies, maybe Insomniac games wanted to try something similar.
I can't wait to start my
according to the devs,
Jak and
Ratchet
Daxter
Deadlocked
videos.
started as a Ratchet
It's gonna be
and
so
Clank
fun
racing game,
playing through those games
vehicular
again.
combat like the Twisted Metal series. But when Insomniac caught wind of Naughty Dog developing Jak,
I miss Visual Vipers so much. Yeah, they're a great weapon. Just the feel and everything, they're great.
X, a vehicular combat game with the Jak series, Insomniac probably went, fuck! And decided to make the fourth game a standard RC title with a darker tone and premise inspired by Bungie's Halo series at the time. Well, I do love me some Halo, but I don't think the Halo vibes really go any farther than the stronger emphasis on gunfights and Ratchet's new Spartan-esque combat armor, which I want to say now, not a real fan of it. Though it is in service to the game's darker tone, I don't like the lower poly count on Ratchet's body compared to other combat armor he's worn in the past. I see Ratchet's cartoonish head stick out of it.
I've only played Lost Frontier. Oh, well, you're missing out then. Jak and Daxter, the first game, that's like prime platforming. Is this the second reviewer comparing this game to Halo? I think basically everyone. But I think Insomniac themselves has said that especially 3 was affected by Halo 2 coming out or something. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of influence going on here. I don't think that's a good thing necessarily, but it's there.
This thing, it just looks wrong, but not in a funny haha sense. It's more oil and water clashing. His in-game animations also look more stiff and rigid.
I'm pretty sure Insomniac confirmed that Halo was an inspiration for this game. Yeah.
Not having the same squash and stretch as before. Apparently the emphasis on lower poly models was to make the game's multiplayer less strenuous on the system. And you know what? Yeah, that makes sense. And yeah, like an Up Your Arsenal, Ratchet Deadlocked also had online multiplayer, which no longer works of course, but it still supports local split-screen co-op for the main campaign. You can play all of story mode with a buddy if you want, which I didn't do for this video, going solo as always of course, but I appreciate the option given. Just make sure your TV is large enough to get a good idea of where you're going and doing. This split screen is Resident Evil 5 crunchy. But to get into why the game is just called Ratchet Deadlocked, we gotta go into the plot. For whatever that means here, because it's a pretty straightforward deal. So we join our heroes aboard the Starship Phoenix when they're notified by Captain Sasha that heroes across the galaxy have been mysteriously disappearing, or worse,
the
killed
plot being horseshit. The only 3 Jak games I haven't played are Jak X, Daxter, and Lost Frontiers. Yeah, I haven't played X and Lost Frontiers, I think. Daxter is like the odd one out. X2 since it's a racing game. But as far as the trilogy goes, being 1, 2, and 3, Daxter is like the platforming focused one, and then 2 and 3 are like the GTA clones ones. But they're still good.
Just soon after she says that shit, robotic troops invade the starship and manage to capture Ratchet, Clank, and Big Al, your scientific companion from the first and third game. Ratchet and friends find themselves in the Shadow Sector, where laws don't matter, and they got explosive collars attached to their necks that'll detonate if they don't obey the one responsible for this whole mess, Gleeman Vox of the Vox Network, a greedy business shark whose face reminds me a little too much of Robert De Niro's shark character from Shark Tale. Thanks for that, Deadlocked. Gleeman takes pleasure in forcibly entering his victims into Dread Zone, a fiendish game show where combatants battle to the death to survive, entertain the masses, and make Gleeman a boatload of money. But lately, he's been having trouble with that last part, as his prized champion, Ace Hardlight, doesn't seem to be drawing the numbers as much as he used to, no matter how many combatants and heroes he kills. So Gleeman, seeing opportunity in Ratchet, puts the dude through the ringer, throwing challenge after challenge after challenge at the determined Lombax, all while having his 2 Dread Zone announcers run a slander campaign against Ratchet constantly, and I mean constantly, sullying his name and making fun of the guy.
After making his fortune selling cigarettes to children,
I mean, you can only watch the same points so many times before it gets boring, right?
Thing to mock, as if the writing was on autopilot. I really could have done without the 2 announcers personally, Dallas and Juanita.
What?
I know they're just
they're the best part.
Just as much victims as Ratchet, forced to run a slander campaign because of Gleeman, but that's not revealed until the end of the game, and maybe if that was shown earlier I'd be more sympathetic to them. I wouldn't have minded so much, but no, for the whole adventure it's just the same repeated commentary and quips on how Ratchet sucks or how Dallas...
Okay, but that part I agree with. They lean a bit too much into just fabricating stories about Ratchet, which are all pretty much the same. They could have probably cut out like 2 of those cutscenes.
Announces Juanita's name weird.
I'll bet he doesn't have any trouble getting a close shave, Juanita.
And that's just like gold. Like this awkward presenter news anchor humor. I love it. That's just my style of humor.
You get it?
Shut up, Dallas. You're not that funny.
And just that retort. Oh my god, it's gold.
Right? In small doses, they would have been fine, but since they follow you through the whole game, they wore thin fast for me. I did appreciate the return of the comically dark advertisements, an element I missed in Up Your Arsenal. In a place like the Shadow Sector, yeah, let Reactor fucking murder a kid to sell a card game. I feel these should have been the sole means of establishing how much of a shit show the Shadow Sector was, but again, the non-stop announcer commentary just dulled my senses in a game that's already sort of dulling my senses in other ways. More on that in a bit. It's a harmless plot, but out of all the games developed during this time, and knowing that development for all of them was strenuous, I think you can tell Deadlocked is the most obvious example, a likely result of the game originally planned.
As far as gameplay and weapons and stuff goes, I think 3 is definitely the worst, absolute worst game in the series when it comes to how obviously short on time they were. At least Deadlocked Gladiator feels like a completed game, although it is very short. The only place that I feel it has missing content is with the story, because the characters aren't fleshed out at all. I miss that humor nowadays. It's all millennial humor, Borderlands style. Yeah. Funny Marvel quips.
It'd be one thing, and then having it to become something else during development. Firstly, outside of maybe Ace Hardlight and Big Al if you consider getting robotic implants character development, there are no real character arcs in this game. Gleeman, Vox, and his cronies are purely one-dimensional. They service the story and fulfill their roles, but they're not as memorable as Captain Quark, Chairman Drek, and especially Dr. Nefarious.
Fuck you! I can't control myself when people compliment Dr. Nefarious. I just can't. I'm sorry. I didn't mean it that way.
At the end, when we saved the day and we're suddenly thanked by all the heroes that we apparently rescued from captivity, and I'm like, wait, who are these guys? I feel these guys should have been more of a factor in this game. Maybe have them team up and unite their powers with Ratchet to break out the Shadow Sector together. Deadlocked is also the shortest game in the series by far. It only took me about half the time to finish this than my time spent on Up Your Arsenal and Going Commando. This game is also somehow more straightforward than Up Your Arsenal, believe it or not, which already removed elements from previous games, so in a way, Deadlocked is like a diet Up Your Arsenal. There's no alternate pathways in this game at all, no extra bolts to collect outside of basic currency. Those elusive skill points that required a ton of work just to get one in the previous games are now given to you like candy here, letting you purchase extra skins and the like to add some color to your next combat mission. Whoa, look at these, look at all these other costumes you can unlock. I think these are supposed to be the other heroes that were in captivity, but shit, that just makes me think they should have been more significant in the story even more. Instead, they're glorified multiplayer skins. Previous gimmicks that required minigames to bypass are also completely nixed. You're given these 2 robotic companions in the beginning to support you in combat, but they're also how you bypass certain barriers and obstacles.
Okay,
all you
that's
gotta
like
do is hit a button and then
though.
give them the order. Very similar to how you
the gadgets in Ratchet Clank games never really worked, in my opinion.
Clank's minions in other games now that I think about it. You know what? That was probably the intention considering how Clank is such a non-entity here outside of mission control. Him being out of the picture also means you don't have access to some extra mobility that Clank offered before, so the rocket jump is gone as is the basic hover, which isn't the end of the world given the lack of platforming already, but it was nice to have anyway. You know, sometimes I don't like using the charge boots for fast travel because of how unruly it can be. I thought the rocket boost was better for controlled bursts. If you blur your eyes, occasionally you might find a smidge of platforming here and there, but Deadlocked is primarily combat focused. Like, this game is all about grabbing your weapons and blowing shit up using the tried and true formula that's been a winner since the first game, and to its credit, it has seen some fine tuning. They added a mini-map showing you your next objective.
To be honest, I always felt it kind of awkward that people are comparing Deadlocked to Halo when dual analog controls have existed since the PlayStation 1 era for one of the Alien games on the console. Yeah. Although, yes and no, I think. Wait, hang on. I'm just gonna, because I can never remember this. Okay, that doesn't make sense. So 2001, right? So PlayStation Dual Shock controller release. $1997. Okay, so why am I so confused when it comes to the dual analog stuff? Because so many people are saying that Nintendo, maybe, no, actually, maybe it's the analog shoulder buttons I'm thinking of. That's probably it. I'm an idiot. I'm sorry that you had to suffer through that. Halo did popularize, though. It's like saying Gears of War didn't do the groundwork for cover shooters, even though it didn't create the style. Yeah. Popularizing it definitely is a big part. Although I feel like dual stick stuff would just eventually, it's just a matter of time, right? While cover shooters, I don't know. Where was I going with this? Oh yeah, right, we're just gonna keep watching the video.
In real time without having to pause the game, which I want to stress I didn't mind doing, but I appreciate them streamlining that bit anyway. They also finally made tools like the swing shot context sensitive. You press a button while you're close to the point, and
it was context sensitive in 3.2. I can't remember the name of the game, but there was an alien FPS game that used it before Halo. Yeah, probably.
Need to needlessly switch weapons.
You know what's really funny? Despite having dual analog sticks, Metroid Prime just used one.
And I ended up using the quick switch a lot in this game, as I found a lot of weapons to be quite handy for different combat scenarios. Weapons and such level up as before to become more powerful, but Deadlocked puts a lot of emphasis on mods as well that you can unlock as guns get more experience. Things like better accuracy and more ammunition.
Although, I would say that the single analog stick design kind of made Metroid Prime a bit of what it is, and it helped the game more than it took away from it, I think.
Ammunition.
It helped create
these other mods that add
special
a secondary
kind of feel
effect to your ammo, like explosive rounds or...
Although I kind of love the motion controls in the Wii ports. Those are straight up fire.
Napalm to leave a lingering magma pile on the ground upon contact. That was good for this Arnold Schwarzenegger wannabe. I tinkered with these for a bit, trying to see what weapon benefited the most with what mod, but I quickly found that across the board, the freeze mod was clearly the best of the bunch. You stop things in their place, meaning they can't follow up with attacks, making them easy picking. By endgame, using the freeze mod, the only two weapons I really needed was the Arbiter, the rocket launcher with homing capabilities, and the fusion rifle, as it was not only immensely powerful to the point of being unfair, let's be real, especially with the freeze mod, but I was also able to wield it as a regular-ass gun without really needing to use its scope function. Larger enemies and their numerous dropships and especially boss fights stood no chance in hell. But don't sleep on the shock mod either. It gives your ammo a lingering shock like the plasma coil from before, one of my favorite weapons from those games. It's handy. There was one mission where you had to stop a bunch of these small enemies from entering the base, and the shock mod made it a total cakewalk. It is the best for those kind of threats. The experimental lock strafe controls introduced in Up Your Arsenal are now the default controls in this game, and I certainly didn't mind that. I ended up loving that control style last time, so this is fine for me. Though you can switch back to more traditional.
The name of the alien game was Alien Resurrection.
Additional controls if that isn't your preference. I thought for the longest time this game removed the backflip and strafe jump because I for the life of me couldn't figure out how to do it. It was so simple in the last game. You just jump while holding a specific...
Check the GameSpot review of it. They complain about the controls with the analog. Did they? Really? That's so funny. Since Halo popularized dual analog FPS, I can see why the comparison is made. And according to the devs, Deadlocked was meant to have longer, broader missions with stronger use of vehicles like in Halo. Yeah, it was supposed to be a... Actually, it was first supposed to be like a car vehicle combat game, right? And then it was reworked. Which is also, my theory is that they already made the vehicle, so they decided to just use it in the game, which is why we see all those, like the Landstalker and stuff. And also the levels are... But maybe that's more akin to 3, right? Yeah, 3 was probably the more Halo-inspired one, now that I think about it.
Direction, but in Deadlocked, you now have to press the jump button twice to do it. And I know it doesn't sound like a big deal at all, but I don't understand the need for the extra input when it worked just as fine as before. So I ended up playing the whole game without these techniques, if you can believe it. Next time...
Wait, what techniques?
I know it doesn't sound like a big specific direction, but in Deadlocked, you now have to press the jump button twice. Simple in the last game. You just jump while holding a specific direction, but in Deadlocked, you now have to press the jump button.
The structure was going to be more Halo-like, not as streamlined as in the final game. Yeah, right.
And twice to do it. And I know it doesn't sound like a big deal at all, but I don't understand the need for the extra input when it worked just as fine as before. So
But like, Deadlocked went through so many iterations, like 3 or something, before they arrived at like the final game. It's kind of insane. I understand why they didn't make it longer, because they simply didn't have the time.
I ended up playing the whole game without these techniques, if you can believe it. Next time, I guess I'll consult the instruction manual. But if it's not the standard run and gun, you can drive through a few hoops with this hover bike that are over before you know it, and thank God, because I hated how floaty this hover bike was here.
Oh, dude,
you can
that's
also
the best vehicle.
To haul back with this Landstalker. Slow as shit, but packs a mean salvo of missiles and other weaponry, so does its job well enough. You also got this Puma, a vehicle I think you only use twice, but I thought it was fine. You drive and shoot things. It worked in Halo, works here as well. As I said with Up Your Arsenal, despite cutting so much from the standard formula, Deadlocked benefits from a consistent, streamlined design. This game is about 5 to 6 hours of heading to the next battle arena, shooting everything in your path, and then choosing the next
Not
mission.
even that,
You don't
I
gotta
think.
worry about backtracking or needing enough currency to buy your way to the next objective. You'll be swimming in money in just an hour with how much you earn in Deadlock, and that's not counting the extra missions you can do for some fast cash.
Even back then, some gaming journalists can't be taken seriously. God Hand 3 out of 10, anyone? I never played God Hand. But like, that has, from how you're writing it, that has some real like 6.7 out of 10 too much water. Or was it 7.3? 7.3 too much water kind of vibes to it.
Deadlocked is not a great follow-up to Going Commando and Up Your Arsenal, but standalone, in a bubble, it works. And I did have fun playing this, but my God, it is so mindless. I was initially surprised by the game's short length, but at the same time I thought, you know what, I'm kind of glad, because I was starting to go a little brain dead. And I'm willing to bet that's also because I played 3 other games before this and burnout is a thing, but after a bit I realized, man, I'm just playing a more elaborate Smash TV with none of the gore. The weapons are fun, as they always are. Outside of the hover bike, I think the other vehicles control just fine. The environments are not the best and a little samey, but they complement the game's darker tones just fine, so I think they work, all things considered. Don't ask me about the soundtrack. I don't remember any of it. That's been a thing with me for the past couple of games, if you couldn't tell already. Had a few of you tell me, Johnny, you didn't talk about the music. And yeah.
Wasn't Alien Resurrection destroyed by IGN for having the modern analog FPS control scheme before it became the norm? That's still hilarious. Yeah, that's really funny.
I know. And it's because I didn't really find anything memorable in the years.
It's like new bad, right? It's always like that. New bad, old good.
At first listen, outside of the first game's soundtrack, which I still think is the best one so far, the other game's soundtracks place more emphasis on the high-octane circumstances given life to the here and now, which is fine, but I felt this came with the consequence of a lot of tracks sounding like one another, homogenous. The first game's soundtrack, I felt, did a better job in giving every planet a personality. No track felt overproduced or overbearing, reserved when it needed to be, action-packed when it needed to be. So, there you go.
Well, you've obviously made some sort of idiotic mistake.
Oh, almost.
Report to B level for disintegration.
Deadlocked is strangely not part of the HD Ratchet collection. It's sold separately on the PlayStation 3, but if you can, I would still recommend playing the original PlayStation 2 release as I did for this video, if it's within reasonability, since I hear the HD version is not the best port. I also want to take a sec to elaborate on something. Some of you were a little confused by my mention of the rampant slowdown I experienced in Up Your Arsenal.
That's the one thing that I absolutely disagree with Johnny on, the OST. Yeah, he said it was, I don't think he said it was forgettable, but he didn't remember anything, so I guess he kind of said it was forgettable. Strong disagree. The OST in Gladiator is peak.
Which, according to you Ratchet & Clank fans, shouldn't have really been as widespread if I was really playing the original release. See, the thing is, I was, but not entirely how you might think. For these past few videos, I've actually been playing these games off of my PlayStation 2 HDD, or the hard drive, courtesy of my friend Experiment, if you remember him from my Metroid videos. This has been a great means of getting my whole library into one neat package, but sometimes you do need to tinker with some settings in the program that runs the games to make sure they're running properly.
But I'm not sure what it has to do with...
say Up Your Arsenal's case, you can get more slowdown than usual, which I want to stress again, I didn't mind that. In fact, I thought it added to the
right, because this thing is loading the game differently from how you would from a disc, right?
Ebb and flow. But I realized that can give people the wrong idea on how Up Your Arsenal can run.
That should just have a the only thing that, well, maybe, I don't know, fucking game development is hard.
And for that, I do apologize. I made sure to check settings properly this time for Deadlocked, and sure enough, I didn't run into nearly as much slowdown as before, and I'm willing to bet that Up Your Arsenal runs just as smooth with proper settings enabled. But considering you guys had to wait for this video, I think I will find some time to squeeze in the PSP games for this marathon specifically, to which I think there's only 2 games, so not much to cover, so we got
that's pretty much it for Johnny. Like it was mentioned, he's kind of like the old guard. Not as much analysis, just kind of talking about the game and how it plays, right? Which is fine. There's a place for that too, I think. Especially if you're just interested in trying it out, right? Yeah, okay, so we have one more video on the docket, which is Exoparadigm Gamers. He's also bald. Yes, he is indeed bald, in case you didn't notice. I can completely understand why many would for emulation over playing on the original hardware, given the fact that the classic games costs a goddamn fortune. Yeah, definitely. Though it's not quite emulation, it's more like just a storage hack or something. So it's not reading the data the same time, the same as it would when reading from a disk, right? Because especially in the Ratchet and Clank games, they had to store most of the data, as much of the data as possible, or at least the data that they would read more often on the inside of the disk, because, well, it spins faster, right? So you can read data faster. I'm not sure how that works when you're storing it digitally, but I know that was also kind of an issue when they were porting over the games for the HD release on the PS3. Did you play those games on PC or PS2? I played it on PS3. Because there's an HD port. And apparently the loading stuff, the differences between loading from a CD and loading digitally, or even from just a Blu-ray, is apparently what caused most of the issues in the HD ports. It's still kind of like an emulation in a sense anyway. Yeah, kind of, except you're not really emulating in the sense that you're trying to mimic the original hardware. You have the original hardware. You're just loading it into the memory and stuff a different way. Anyways, yeah, that was Johnny. We're gonna go watch the Exoparadigm Gamer video next. Now, keep in mind, this is an old video. This is a 7-year-old video from, is he even still active? All right, yeah, he has the remake or re-break stuff. Although, it doesn't seem like he's active anymore. See, this is going to be kind of interesting to watch whenever I get to the Metroid games where I actually want to watch videos for. I mean, I'll probably throw in, I don't know if it fits with the style, but whatever. I looked up Ratchet and Clank on eBay, and most of the PS2 games are like 12 USD. Yeah, they're especially the Ratchet and Clank games, I think, were sold a lot of, so they probably don't have, the price probably isn't that marked up. Although, if you're looking for a good copy, like one that isn't scratched to hell and back, that would probably set you off a bit more, I think. Don't quote me on that though. Anyways, this is Exoparadigm Gamer with his review of Ratchet Deadlocked, featuring Nick on Planet Ripple. So let's see if this has anything worth writing down. He's active in a few other channels like Game Mavericks, Let's Play channel, and Unversed Cast, Let's Plays and Podcast. Is Unversed Cast still going? I think I have it on my podcast app, but I don't think they've been updating that. Have they? They have, 2 months ago. They uploaded Game of the Year 2023. Huh, interesting. Okay, so he is active, just not on YouTube. Or at least not on his main channel, I guess. Interesting. Because I first started listening to Unversed Cast when they first started, right? And then they took like this long break, so I was like, yeah, they're probably not gonna start up again. I haven't watched any of EXO's videos in a long time, and I can't understand why, given the fact that YouTube as a career, especially nowadays, is not recommended. Yeah, dude, I'm not. I know some people are trying to make YouTube a career, but it's like, not even if I had 1 million subscribers, probably. Because it's just such an... It's not very secure. It's not a very secure form of income. It could be taken away with the snap of a finger. Like being Thanos'd, right? So, yeah. Probably gonna keep my day job even if I get a 100K a month from Patreon. Actually, at that point, I might quit. Just do nothing. See how long people are gonna be giving me money for. Anyways, let's start the video. HeroToZero net worth be like more billion Norwegian crowns. Yes, definitely. Especially if inflation keeps ramping up and the crown keeps dropping in value. Then $1 is gonna be like 20 crowns, and I'll be fucking rich.
Greetings and welcome back, gentles and ladies.
Greetings and welcome. Whoa. Almost made me dizzy.
To another exciting EPG review. I'm Paradigm Gamer, and it's high time we visited the Ratchet and Clank series. Before we do...
So, how can you tell that this is an old video? Bombastic head movements, arms flailing all over the place. Yeah, that's... This is 2015 YouTube, alright. While most rat games don't cost a lot nowadays, thank God, some PS2 games cost way too much, and it's still possible to see rat games cost a lot more in the future. Yeah. Retro games, I mean, there was like this big outcry a while back that retro games were just rocketing in price. I can tell it's an old video from his sound system on his bedstand. Ugh, yeah, that's like... pure plastic
I'd like
stuff.
to get two things out of the
really
way
weird finish.
Right now.
I remember.
One.
Yes. Nice freeze frame. I had speakers like that once. Barely produced any sound, and what they produced wasn't really listenable.
I have not seen the movie yet. 2. I have not played the PS4 game yet.
Oh, I envy you so bad.
Because I don't own a PS4. That being said, it's finally time to talk about Ratchet & Clank Future Tools of Destruction for the PlayStation 3. Is this high-definition installment a worthy follow-up to the PS2 trilogy? Let's find out.
Hang on. I can't believe he willingly shows us his logs. Is there anything we can glean from this? Alright, I literally need you to call me to help transition you into the scene. I'm going to cut out a shot of my computer monitor with you calling me. I love this. It's probably intended as humor. It's so funny. Remember Skype? That was a thing. Also, yeah, definitely doxed him. I'm guessing that's part of the joke. Yeah.
But Mike, what about Ratchet Deadlocked?
Nick and Aqua Magna, what are you doing here?
I exist in all spaces.
Oh, this is so crazy, dude.
But I thought you were hard at...
Is this guy like... I wanted to say discount Chugga Conroy, but even Chugga Conroy is discount Chugga Conroy.
What I thought you were...
While Exo's Deadlocked video is old, it's far from the worst review video at the very least. Yeah, probably.
Hard at work on your upcoming review.
It's just really fun to watch these mannerisms, because so few video game reviewers actually, you know, has live action segments nowadays. It's basically just a lot of footage. And then this is like peak, this like over dramatic YouTube era. This is like my friends and I acting while playing D&D when we were 16. How old is this? This video is 7 years old, or more specifically, it was released the 31st of August, 2016. So it's almost 8. A couple of months out.
The Metroid Prime trilogy.
Oh yeah, about that. I'm trying out this crazy new thing called Summer. Turns out it's really good for you. I might try it next year too. Don't change the subject. Why are you leaving out this perfectly legitimate entry?
I really don't like how he's framing this shot with him in the mirror in the background. Also, what's up with the ceiling? It's literally falling apart.
In the classic Ratchet and Clank.
I think only Angry Joe has this cheesy overdramatic scenes in his reviews because, you know, he's AVGN in ethos.
Clank series.
Ratchet Deadlocked? I've never played it. Is it any good?
Oh yeah, it's great. In fact, I'm playing it right now. Let's review it together.
Might as well. Perhaps having a more seasoned opinion on this game will help to round things out. Alright, anecdote time. Back in late 2011 and 2012, I used to visit a video game store called Play and
I did this for my two first videos. It was grand.
Trade a couple towns over. This place sold newer games on modern systems, but it also had an impressive assortment of retro games. People could trade in their used games, consoles, and accessories for store credit, cash, or other merchandise. Given their selection and nearby location, Play and Trade became my offline retro game store of choice. Sure, you can get exactly what you want on eBay and Amazon, but shopping for retro in person is like a box of chocolates. You never quite know what you're gonna get. Unfortunately, my local Play and Trade closed down just before I came back home from college a couple years ago, which was coincidentally when I started my original Ratchet & Clank marathon. Well, my point in bringing this up is that Play and Trade was where I purchased most of my PS2 collection, with a few exceptions.
I try not to do the story time thing in my videos anymore, at least not when it's just my personal history with the game, unless it's very brief. And yeah, I agree, but it's sometimes fun to listen to, right? Especially if it's very specifically ties into that game and the way you look at it, then I think you can get away with it. But just talking about how hey, this is the place I bought the game. Does that matter at all? I do remember that they mentioned interesting points that would be worth bringing up, in my opinion. Maybe. I don't know. I don't do it anymore unless I really feel the need to throw in a bit of extra context. Or if it's just a really funny anecdote. But try to keep it short.
I remember seeing Ratchet Deadlocked on a shelf filed next to the other RNC games on PS2, staring at the cover and instantly thinking of games like Jak 2 or Shadow the Hedgehog. After all, Ratchet...
I feel like most people will stop watching if you do it too early on because of how cliche it is. Yeah, definitely. That's something I have a lot of problem with is viewer retention. I tried to remedy it with the preview thing in the Odyssey video. I think it went kind of okay. Although, as you pointed out, it was a bit too long. I think I'm gonna try to cut it down to 30 seconds next time and see how that works. But it did have a noticeable impact on retention time, actually, because a lot more people were watching at the 30-second mark, which is interesting.
Deadlocked came out in that same time frame, where mature shooters suddenly took over the market. Point is, the seemingly edgier tone of the cover art with its dark, undersaturated colors and an edgy looking Ratchet standing next to a couple of homicidal robots turned me off from purchasing the game. At best, Deadlocked seemed like a spin-off that wasn't really relevant to the events of the Future series, which I was much more interested in playing at the time. So I skipped on Deadlocked and jumped straight into Tools of Destruction, which is ironically much more lighthearted than the previous entries. So now, thanks to the suggestion of my colleague here, I finally have an excuse to play this game in full and see if it's worth checking out.
Ratchet Deadlocked was...
I think Golden Bolt does his intros pretty well. They are a nice hook. Yeah. He also has that fancy intro stuff. Sometimes it doesn't work though, I think. At least that's the case from the 2 videos I've seen of his.
Was one of the earliest Ratchet and Clank games I got to play. The first was Tools of Destruction, which my little bro and I got for our PS3 back in the day, and I loved the game. Shortly after, I found used copies of the original Ratchet and Clank and Ratchet Deadlocked for the PS2 and bought them.
I really like the idea of having a preview, just because it lets viewers kind of see what's coming up. Although, at the same time, you don't want to share too much, right? I do like it as well when people bring up their personal history with the game that they're reviewing, but that's arguably subjective, not objective. The problem is that you risk bringing the pace to a halt when you do that, especially if it's not that interesting or makes sense in context with the game, right? Because people are coming to the video most likely to hear you talk about the game, not outside factors.
Together. And a month or so later, I got going commando and up your arsenal until I was beyond hyped for a cracking time. I was a full-blown fan. I feel these first 3 games together introduced me to a little of everything the series is about, and they were all very different. Ratchet Deadlocked is kind of the middle child of the Ratchet and Clank series. It doesn't get as much attention as those that came before or after. Hopefully I can show you guys why I love this game.
This is Ratchet Deadlocked for the PlayStation 2. The plot picks up shortly after the events of Up Your Arsenal. Ratchet has become captain of the Starship Phoenix, with Commander Sasha having become mayor of Metropolis. Sasha calls to inform Ratchet of the death of Captain Starshield, a hero who went missing a month ago. Her intelligence suggests that Starshield was abducted and forced to compete on Dreadzone, a black market holovision program spearheaded by the villainous Vox.
We're summarizing the story
Shadow
again.
sector of the Solana Galaxy, Dreadzone sees its contestants overcoming death force after deathmatch to compete with other gladiators for the process.
A good example of that is Johnny's Sunshine review, since he brings up his history with the game towards the end of his video. It's also kind of funny. Yeah, what was that like again? I've probably watched that video, but I don't remember what he said. But yeah, if it's funny and, actually relevant, then yeah, go for it.
Aspect of their freedom.
Or at the very least, fame and fortune. It's a pretty cynical game.
And once you know it, Ratchet, Clank, and Big Al are captured by Vox's forces then and there, as they've apparently drifted into the Shadow sector.
Like, if you're going to bring up your personal history with any game, it should be short, at the very least. Yep, I
Ratchet is immediately fitted with a deadlock collar, which will shock him or even explode his head if he refuses to comply with Vox's orders. While Clank and Al work on a plan to escape Dreadzone and free the other contestants, Ratchet must compete for his very life as he works his way up through the ranks and survives a seemingly endless onslaught of robotic butchers, savage monsters, and crazed competition. In summary, the plot is essentially the same as
You just
The
summarized
Running Man,
it.
starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. You know, that movie that the Hunger Games ripped off? After getting captured by local authorities, the
How can you
protagonist is
summarize a summary? That doesn't even make sense.
forced to compete on a game show hosted by a corrupt capitalist for the possibility of surviving and going home free. In both the film and the game, the media lies about the identity of the protagonist to turn the audience against them.
That's also another thing I want to stop doing, covering the story at the beginning. Yeah, like I said, I've done this too, but I find it more interesting when you manage to weave the story with some criticism, right? Or at least don't put it at the beginning, put it like in the middle or something, so that people will, what's it called? The sunk cost fallacy, so that people will actually, be more likely to finish the videos, to sit through the boring parts. At least, it's like, it's really hard to talk about the story without doing some sort of summarizing. But I think that if you manage to weave your own opinions and analysis in between the story beats, then it can be entertaining. It's hard. I'm not good at it, but there are people who are, that you can look at to get some inspiration, and none of which I can remember from the top of my head right now, but it'll probably come to me later, or have it connected to the game in some interesting way, like Johnny Sunshine's video, as IJP mentioned. It's especially hard when the story is very simple, which is the case for a lot of retro games. Yeah, definitely. In a lot of cases, I'll just skim over the story or just skip it altogether, honestly. Because for the most part, it's not that integral to the game as a whole. Of course, this heavily depends on the game, right? But I'll maybe bring up the stuff that's actually relevant instead of like small B plots or whatever, right? There's a lot of different ways to do this. I'm sure I'm gonna find better ways in the future, but well, it's a work in progress, I guess.
The audience ultimately changes their mind when the protagonist's allies engineer a plan to undermine the antagonist's operation.
Here he is, ready to pay the price for our home audience. In person, the Butcher of Bakersfield!
The Butcher of Bogon has his work cut out for him this time. Why?
Always try, Purdy. Always try. Bully him into making more videos like you want, right? That's what we call audience capture. And it's not a good thing, but you can try.
He starts the round with only a wrench for protection.
Now, to be clear, Ratchet Deadlocked does do a number of things differently from the Running Man in terms of plot, but compared to the stories in the previous 3 games, it feels like we're backpedaling a little. Based on the game's premise alone, you have a pretty good idea of how Deadlocked is going to end, especially if you've seen the Running Man. Compare that to Going Commando, where you were never quite sure what was going to happen next. It's an intriguing plot, and it gets the job done, but it didn't really leave me with much of a lasting impression.
Yeah, I won't pretend Deadlock's plot is amazing, but I do appreciate what a strange turn it is for the series. Up until now, the threats have been getting bigger and grander in scale, naturally, but they dialed it back in this game, limiting the scope to Ratchet and the gang, making it more personal and the danger more...
What gang? You mean Al? Fucking Al? He's not even worthy of being part of the gang.
Idiot. The galaxy may not be under siege this time, but in terms of the threat to the lives of these...
I mean, I like Al, but he's not the gang.
These characters we've now spent years adventuring with, this is one of the most dire situations Ratchet and Clank have ever been in. One thing that does disappoint me is this is the last time we ever see Sasha. She doesn't appear in any future games with an updated character model or anything, though she does get mentioned by a pirate in Tools of Destruction.
Yeah, like every single other love interest Ratchet has ever had. They're there for a game and then they completely disappear.
She does return to play an important role in that comic that takes place shortly before All for One, but in terms of the games, this opening cutscene is the last time we'll ever see her, and that kinda stings. It is nice of them to include her, but it's too bad they didn't also whip up at least one still shot for the ending credits, where you see her happy that her friends are safe and all that, giving her and the PS2 era of Ratchet and Clank games a heartfelt send-off. Oh well.
I also have a hard time suspending my disbelief on a number of plot points. For example, Vox has the ability to blow up Ratchet's head at any time with the push of a button, yet declines to do so on a number of...
So we're going from summarizing the plot to over-analyzing the plot, neither of which is really productive. I think you just, for the most part, have to take the plot at face value and then work within the logic of the plot. It doesn't make sense for Vox to just kill Ratchet instantly when it doesn't go his way because he wants the ratings, right? Depending on the game, another option you could do is have 2 videos. One focusing on gameplay and the other focusing on story, since a lot of players are interested in the story just as much, if not more. Yes, maybe, but then you have like the two-parter syndrome, where a lot of people are going to watch part 1, but then not a lot of people are going to watch part 2. Which is usually the case, and you see it with every kind of video, right? Even Let's Plays. You get the most views in part 1, and then it just slowly diminishes as the series go on, with maybe a little uptick here and there based on algorithms, and especially probably the last episode. I'm gonna... I wonder if Pat's Skyrim video suffered from that. Because I think it did, although he's popular enough for it not to be an issue. His Outer Worlds video definitely suffered from that though. Because part 1 has 700k views at the moment, while his part 2 video has 232k. That's almost like a 70% decrease in views. What was the Skyrim video? Yeah, see, even the Skyrim analysis, Act 1 has 3.1 million views, while Act 2 has 1.8 million views. While it's not as severe as the Outer Worlds or even Fallout 76 videos, there's still a lot there, right? It did a little bit. I mean, it still got 1 mil, but yeah, not as much as the first part. So there's that to take into consideration too, right? Although making 2 videos will probably get some of the same viewers from the first one jumping over to the second one, so it just, is it really worth it? Is it really worth the extra work? Because it does take a lot of work to script it in a way that makes it coherent, right? Yeah, I think I watched 2 of the Outer Worlds videos. I do like analyzing stories, especially if the story has so much to offer than just what it shows on the surface. But like, in that case, you probably should dedicate a channel to analyzing just the stories, right? Like movie reviews and such. Actually, it was the Fallout videos. I didn't finish those. Yeah, I did. The Fallout 76 videos are so fun. They're so much fun. Usually for Pats and private sessions videos too, I usually put them on in the background for when I'm doing editing that's not audio intensive, and they're so good to listen to. Like, really gets me not just inspired, but also makes me want to do better, you know? And that's fun. That's just me though. Yeah. We all have opinions. It's wonderful. It's great. Anyways, on with the video. That was a tangent.
Obvious occasions, and you'd think that he would, seeing as Vox becomes visibly frustrated when Ratchet's popularity starts to undermine his Ace Hardlight merchandising operation.
Well, he probably would have if Ratchet didn't play ball early in the game, but as Ratchet's popularity rose, Vox became determined to make him a ratings machine and squeeze the Lombax for everything he's worth. With Ace's own popularity waning, Vox can't afford to lose both of his potential icons, and he chose Ratchet.
Alright, fair enough. I'm also curious about how it is that the President and the Galactic Rangers never knew about Dread Zone before this point, even though little kids can apparently tune into this program.
Oh, I didn't notice that until now, but I kind of love how the stream is being recommended by YouTube on the same video page
very easily and quickly learn that it's transparently illegal. The game also doesn't do a good job explaining how Dread Zone is illegal and underground, while something like Annihilation Nation is apparently a-okay.
It's probably something that mostly airs in places where the government's control is pretty lax and people could tune in through a secret frequency. In fact, all the planets Dread Zone takes place on, including Urxon from the first game, could be like the Outer Rim from Star Wars, where the Republic and then the Empire don't have as much control as they do on the core worlds near the center of the galaxy. And these backwater planets
FromHerotoZero has rigged the YouTube algorithm. If only. If only I could do that.
Are basically free game for warlords and rich sleazeballs to abuse. Also, you have to remember, there is one big difference between Dread Zone and Annihilation Nation. In legal game shows like that, the gladiators volunteer to participate. Vox's goons kidnap people and force them to compete until they die. I guess normal blood sports of fellow galactic protocol grew too boring for some people, creating a market for the edgier, more brutal Dread Zone. Dread Zone is basically one giant glorified snuff film. You can watch it, but you'd probably have to access it through shady means and be a total sicko to even want to watch it.
Alright, I guess you've got a point there. None of these things are really that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things, but I still think Ratchet Deadlocked's plot could benefit from a tighter script that explains some of these smaller points in a little more detail. Actually, I think that a couple simple rewrites would do the trick. Like, say the story was set in a new galaxy that Ratchet and Company happened to visit while searching for Captain Starshield, only to get captured by Vox's goons. Perhaps in this galaxy, which lacks essential authority, Vox's media empire fills the gap, allowing him to have his way with the inhabitants on Dread Zone.
Okay, but right now they're just ignoring why Deadlocked is such a short game. Just ignoring how little time they had. Good old consumerism and capitalism of the old rat games. You will be forever missed. Indeed. Indeed. We got this last kind of hurrah, though, so it shouldn't be sad. We should be glad that it happened.
Yeah, I can see that happening. I guess they didn't want to go that far since they were already moving forward to a new galaxy in the next game.
Yeah, I suppose that makes sense. As long as I'm talking about the small things I didn't like about the plot, I ought to bring attention to the things that I did enjoy. I'm happy to say that while Ratchet Deadlocked is slightly edgier in tone than its predecessors, it still feels very much like a Ratchet.
Fuck the 2016 game. Yep.
And Clank game. The presentation and voice acting are still top-notch. The writing has that same snappy wit to it.
That's kind of the motto of this challenge. No, this challenge. This channel. That's kind of the motto of this channel. Fuck the 2016 game.
Satire is as biting
Not elaborating or anything. It's just fuck the 2016 game. If you say that, everyone knows what you're talking about.
6 million bolts of hardware down the drain, and those ingrates are celebrating like I won the freaking lottery. Remind me why I put up with these morons.
Who else would watch Vox News?
There's a score of references to the previous games, and the commentary on the dark side of capitalism present in the first two games returns here. I was afraid that Deadlocked would do to Ratchet's character what Jak 2 did to Jax, but I'm happy to say that he's still very much the same Lombax he was in Going Commando and Up Your Arsenal. He's a cocky but determined commando who aims to protect his friends and is happy to see justice done. What's also kind of fun is that despite the fact that Ratchet's in mortal danger, he does seem to genuinely enjoy the idea of being a famous Dread Zone gladiator, which I really like. The Ratchet from the other games would totally react this way.
To be fair, Ratchet does have a few moments where he starts to sink into a dark place, and you wonder how much Dread Zone is going to affect him if he ever does get out. Seeing how it's changed Ace Hardlight, who was once a hero like Ratchet but has become a sort of dark mirror of how he could very well turn out, is enough to pull him back to the light, until he outright rejects everything about Dread Zone and Ace's world. It's a test of his character and he comes out on top. If his chipper demeanor in future games is anything to go by, I'd say he's coped with this ordeal pretty well.
The new characters, most notably
The more I think about the 2016 game, the more I need to go back to anger management, and for good reason. That ruined so much of this franchise, dude.
Zone anchors Dallas and Juanita were also well characterized and memorable for the most part. Gleeman Vox didn't do much for me at first, but I did eventually warm up to him. I questioned some of his decisions in the late game, but other than that, he does his job quite well. At the very least, he's got a great character design.
Yeah, I love that this money-hungry mogul is a shark. You know, like a loan shark. He's not trying to take over the galaxy or whatever. He's
not giving out loans, though.
And dies by a ratings chart. I admit, my appreciation for this character is largely owed to Michael Bill's performance. He's the guy who voices Lawrence. With his other performances usually so underplayed, it's a treat to listen to him lose it here. Dude's got some range. The other characters are pretty fun too.
Surprisingly, I really liked Ratchet's BattleBots too. At first they didn't really do much for me, but as the game goes on, you really start to feel a sense of camaraderie with these little guys. There's one level where your BattleBots are imprisoned and you have to rescue them one by one, and I was surprisingly invested in getting them free.
Yeah, these guys are legit. Merc and Green managed to endear me more than the Galactic Rangers ever did, through their commentary and just how effective they are during gameplay as you upgrade them. They kind of made it a...
Actually, maybe this is a hot take, but I don't mind the bots that much. At least they're not Mr. Zircon bots that just keeps talking and talking and talking. The most I had against them was that they got in my way a few times, but I actually kind of enjoy the few speaking lines they actually have.
Joke in the last game that after a while the Rangers
the way that second guy reads reminds me of another YouTuber, but I can't remember who.
Take you for granted and expect you to do all the work, bunch of flakes. These guys are more genuine, and they got your back from beginning to end, and it's certainly appreciated. On Torvald, there's this one mission where if you go to a certain area, Green will tell you about a long-lost love he has and wars he's been in. It's...
Oh, dude, you know he's played the game a lot when he has 99 million volts.
Good stuff. And the tension between Dallas and Juanita...
Oh, and the whole mommy baby thing. Sexy. Baby needs a changing.
It's almost bearable. Their commentary, while repetitive at times, is also pretty good thanks to their VA's performances. And one more thing. Am I the only one who finds it freaky as all shit that one...
What the fuck?
Juanita has normal human eyes in the movie? Dallas, look at him. They let...
Jesus Christ. What is going on? Dallas looks like fucking George W. Bush. What? And look at these fucking generic alien. Oh, God. Ah, my eyes!
Left out his hairpiece and he just looks like a generic alien dude without it. And these two are legitimate reporters now. Yeah, right. Back to you, Mike.
Thank you, Nick. While the plot is definitely pretty predictable...
That image is making blind as hell. Someone call a doctor. Fuck, dude. They thoroughly managed to ruin just every good thing about every Ratchet and Clank game, didn't they? Fuck.
Predictable for the most part, the build-up is still pretty strong. The rivalry between Ratchet and Grand Champion / former hero Ace Hardlight is set up very well, and it gives you the extra motivation to push through all the death courses and eventually take the bastard on in the last tournament. Overall, Ratchet Deadlocked is above average for the series in terms of plot, but it still stands well for a spin-off RNC game. And it is admittedly a nice break from saving the galaxy over and over again. Ratchet Deadlocked was Insomniac's last game on the PS2, and it really shows graphically. Technically, the game supports widescreen and progressive scan, making the visuals about as advanced as it gets for PlayStation 2. While Ratchet himself looks pretty different in his Dread Zone battlesuit, the overall art direction is pretty consistent with that of the previous games. Character models are top tier for PlayStation 2, and the animations feature the same attention to detail that Insomniac is known for. My only complaint in that regard is that Ratchet's running animation does seem to lack that hypnotic sway from the first three games.
Yeah,
but
someone
that's a
finally
minor
mentioned
point.
the running animation. How did mankind allow the 2016 game to exist? How? I don't know. I don't think we had a say, honestly.
Yeah, he is a little robotic in this one.
While the environments are definitely grayer and browner than the previous games, they still have a much more vibrant color palette than something like Jak 2.
I think the reason why the movement is so stiff and stuff is that they had to apply it to multiple skeletons because of the various skins you can use. And they didn't have enough time to fine-tune it, so they just had to go with what fit them all the best, right?
Regarding the planets you visit, there isn't too much new here, but the settings do at least have some diversity. Regarding the soundtrack, David Bergo returns to the musician's chair, this time offering an edgier score than the more cinematic tracks of the second and third games. It matches Deadlocked's darker setting and plot perfectly. There's more of a rock and roll edge to this game than the previous entries, and it really accentuates the over-the-top carnage happening on screen. I don't think it's quite as memorable as Going Commando or Up Your Arsenal, but I'm sure that after I listen to the soundtrack...
Hardcore techno is totally different. This isn't hardcore techno at all.
YouTube a couple of times, I'll probably change my mind on that point. Additionally, the sound design is top-notch, making combat that much more satisfying than it would have been otherwise. Overall, Ratchet Deadlocked is well up to par with previous games in the series in terms of the visuals and audio, embracing its darker tone while still looking and sounding like a Ratchet & Clank game.
For me, the soundtrack is good, but a little...
I'm back. Sorry I'm late. Shower was taking for a while before I could use it, so I wanted to catch up a bit on reactions to the other vids here. Ah, cool. Welcome back to Breeze. It's always nice to have you.
Body. Some of the tunes are okay for building an atmosphere, but don't really stick with you. Others are downright hectic, conveying a sense of...
These are 2015 music genre definitions, so cut them a slack. Okay, fine.
Panic and mayhem to change things up, but the best tunes are usually the ones that play near the end of a world. Some good examples include the Valak spell to let the light shine through, Torval's to turn on, and Stygia's energy collector, though that plays a little early in its campaign. These tunes are all very effective at getting across just how desperate some of these scenarios get, how down to the wire victory really is. They make you feel like you're lucky to make it at all, let alone save anyone else.
That looks
the most
rough.
effective tune in the entire soundtrack has gotta be Escape, the final mission on the Ghost
doing the first person thing with the swing shot.
Station. Man, the Ghost Station, just that name is badass. Most of this campaign plays it pretty straight in terms of gameplay and music. Once you turn the tide and get...
And yes, they added Dallas and Juanita in the movie and tie-in game, and they don't even look good anymore. I can't believe it.
To clean things up with
I can't believe it, dude.
You get to listen to this.
See, this is way more in line with, this reminds me of the desert in the second game. And I like the musical scores of the first and second game much, much better than in the third. In the third, it feels like everything just blended together in a mess of percussion and stuff, but... Actually, wait, it's just the movie, since you only see them in cutscenes ripped straight from the movie. Oh, yeah, right, that was the thing about the 2016 game too. It wouldn't be a Ratchet & Clank reboot if Insomniac had enough time to polish the game, right? Just like the old classics. I would say Deadlocked OST is between hardcore techno and hard rock. Well, kind of. I'm definitely no musician, so I can't say a lot, to be honest. I feel techno is more bass heavy, it feels like, right?
Beautiful. This is easily my favorite tune in the game, and one of my favorite pieces in the whole series, like top 5 material. It's one of the more emotional pieces.
It's techno-ish, but I wouldn't call it hardcore techno. Still can't get over the chief goals Insomniac Games had when making 2016. Yeah, the ones in that slide. Jesus.
This is strangely upbeat for what has got to be one of the most perilous moments of our heroes' careers. All of the tunes I've mentioned are worth listening to, and there's others you might enjoy as well. It's definitely a departure from the music of past games, but it does well being its own thing. It didn't hit me that hard at first, but I've come to appreciate it over the years. Graphically, Michael and I are pretty much on the same page.
One thing I do appreciate is that every weapon has like unique animations. It's just not just a placeholder that you shoot objects out of. That's one thing I've always appreciated with the Ratchet & Clank games. The weapons have animations for how they work and stuff. 1. Fix the game's gameplay so that it didn't run by the same dated, clunky, and poorly refined mechanics 2002 suffered from. I mean, to a certain point, I do agree, but like the only thing the 2002 game needed was a good strafe function, and it would have been perfect
at first, but I've come to appreciate it over the years. Graphically, Michael and I are pretty much on the same page.
Things are pretty...
I mean, I think it just shows how Insomniac thinks of the Ratchet & Clank series, right? And how removed it is from the people who like the first game more than the other ones.
Here in the gameplay department, the gunplay is virtually unchanged.
2. Fix the game's story so that Ratchet wasn't poorly written to be an unlikable and mean-spirited main protagonist towards Clank. Yeah, imagine having a main protagonist that's rounded, that has opinions, and learns from his mistakes, and has, you know, actual interactions with characters. Instead, we got like just a zoned out shell of a character who just went along with everything. So, oh my god. Okay.
Change from up your arsenal. Right off the bat, you're given a choice, but
this is something that I have always wanted to say for a long time. The Future Saga never accomplished the Pixar experience that Insomniac has been so obsessed with. Yeah, no, not even Rift Apart does that. Not even close. There's one thing I immediately reacted to when I started up that game, and it's the way they have post-processing effects, like film grain and vignettes and bloom, or maybe not bloom, just like trying to emulate the camera as if the game world is being filmed with an actual camera. And it fucking pissed me off so bad. Like, you're not trying to make a movie, guys. You're trying to make a game. Why do you tack on these fucking post-processing effects? Oh, Goldie talks about it? That's interesting.
Between a traditional Ratchet and Clank control scheme,
at least,
typical dual analog scheme, and a
Pixar
first-person
experience.
scheme. You start out with a blaster weapon and a shotgun weapon, but defeating enemies will earn you bolts that you can use at Dread Zone vendors to purchase new weapons and mods that will add extra features to said weapons. Defeating enemies will earn experience points to increase Ratchet's health bar, while successfully landing shots on enemies will eventually level up that weapon, increasing the damage output and unlocking a new Alpha Mod slot. The gameplay itself is as over-the-top and satisfying as ever, pulled together by tight responsive control.
A Crack in Time might be the closest to accomplishing that Pixar experience that Insomniac is so obsessed with, but even then, that game failed that goal as well.
And satisfying visual effects.
Well, more so the ambition IG had to make the series bigger than the PS2 games, both in story and gameplay. Oh, right, yeah, right. His Tools of Destruction video is titled The Cost of Ambition, right? Yeah, that makes sense. Actually kind of looking forward to watching those now.
Enjoyed the combat in the previous games, you'll enjoy it in Ratchet Deadlocked as well.
One thing Deadlocked does that is pretty different from the previous games is this new modding system. You've got alpha mods and omega mods. Omega mods are what you'd expect. Acid injected rounds, extra bombs, napalm. Some mods work much better with certain weapons and even in different situations. For example, if you equip the acid mod to a weapon that fires slow shots, you're not going to get that much mileage out of the extra damage. If you equip it to a more rapid fire weapon like the 12 Vipers, that can double or even triple the damage. And that's good and all if you want to drain a larger enemy's health with continuous fire, but I find myself using the shock mod more often with these weapons. The shots are just strong enough to take down pretty much all of the smaller enemies, and the resulting shock will take out
A Crack in Time's the reward over consequences. All for One and Q-Force are the blunder years, Nexus is the what if of the series, and 2016 is gaming's most successful failure. Yeah. Oh yeah, the titles, yeah. I'm definitely going to make that video on why the Future Saga failed that Pixar experience over and over again. You know what? Do that before I get to before I get to the oh my fucking god, crack in time, and we will watch that video on stream.
Got several, even dozens of other nearby grunts. This is a good way to clear a room of a swarm. Sure, being able to turn enemies into farm animals or make them fight each other is fun and all, but I found myself using the more practical mods like freezing or napalm. Freezing is great for weapons like the magma cannon since its shots tend to converge and home in on enemies, and the Leviathan flail which outright shatters them. Napalm works best for weapons like the hunter mine since most if not all of the residue will cling to enemies and survive the initial blast. And the mini bomb and time bomb mods are great for the already more explosive weapons like the Arbiter. They can be almost as effective as the bouncer was in other games, though equipping the freeze mod to the Harbinger is probably the most satisfying combo of all, since it looks like it's instantly turning them to glass. Then there's alpha mods. This is where things get interesting.
Can we watch the Digital Madman's vid on why the Future series kind of sucks? Like in that next stream, I mean? Yeah, definitely. Should I save it for a crack in time though? Or does it make sense to just do it during the Tools of Destruction work streams? Without comparing the Future Saga to the PS2 rack games, mostly I will definitely explain why as well. Yeah, sounds good.
These will increase your weapon's rate of fire, blast radius, ammo capacity, even auto-targeting, but that's pretty basic.
Maybe possibly for Nexus since he includes that game for a bit. Oh, okay. Yeah. And yeah, I guess it does kind of make sense to just be done with crack in time before you look back at it and compare it to the next one in the series, right?
Stuff. They're super expensive, but like Exo said earlier, your weapons are automatically equipped with a new one pretty much every time they level up all the way to level 10. But you know what's even better? You can unequip these
Wait, what? What is he missing? He's missing the hollow shield. Why didn't he buy the hollow shield? That's so weird.
mods from one weapon and attach them to any other weapon. You can put all of your collected speed mods on a weapon to make it fire super fast.
I mean, he has fucking 99 million bolts. Why hasn't he bought the hollow shield?
The best mods of all, though, are the bonus mods. These will increase the bolts or XP you gain by 25%, which means if you equip a second one to that same weapon, they increase 25% of 125, and then 156, and then 195, and so on. You can't even buy these before challenge mode, but keep an eye on your weapons, since you'll eventually acquire one or two of each by leveling up, and then you can just attach them to whichever gun you want to level up slightly faster. Challenge mode is where the real fun begins. Once you can buy more of these mods at your leisure, it becomes a very different game. So here's my top 5 favorite levels to grind for experience points. Monuments of Death. Whack-a-Swarmer.
Darkstar is in rare form tonight.
Refinery Ambush.
Like, okay, so the thing about the alpha mods, I feel like the default, the way you unlock them, or like the ones you unlock while the weapon levels up is probably good enough, and changing it around has some adverse effects when it comes to either ammo capacity or damage output. So, but like one makes up for the other, right? Especially speed mods, I don't quite see any reason to have more than like 3 or 4, even on the dual wipers. Because you're sacrificing so much ammunition that you're just gonna empty it all in the course of seconds. And for the rest of the alpha mods, they don't actually impact gameplay that much. Like, I want to compare the Future Saga games with the actual Pixar films in detail as best as possible. Can't wait to have Die Hard, Future Saga, Angry Mob at my door after the video. Dude, that actually looks really, sounds really interesting. Seriously, go for it. Because I think the Ratchet fandom needs that. so many people in denial, especially after Rift Apart.
Your land is my land. This course has a lot of bigger enemies and is one of the best places to upgrade weapons like the Harbinger. But there is one place that's even better. Heavy metal. This is probably the best place in the entire game to come back to for experience points. You can get a ton of XP here in no time. This challenges everything. Most of the enemies are huge, the arena is fairly small so it's easy to light up the place, and even zombies start piling in near the end. This place is even more fun to come back to in challenge mode. If you've collected a good amount of bonus XP mods by now, and you apply them all to a single weapon, oh my gosh, you will level up so fast it's downright ludicrous compared to other games in the series. Just look at that XP bar. One of my challenge mode playthroughs ended here. I didn't even finish it. I just maxed out all of my weapons in like half an hour and felt completely fulfilled, like I just stumbled upon Nirvana or something. I think I might have a problem. On another note, End Zone is the best challenge to milk for bolts. All you need to do is set up a few mini turret guns, equip them with a shock mod, and enemies will die as soon as they spawn in. It's like watching something being assembled at a factory, only to be taken apart immediately. And of course, if you've equipped a few bonus bolt mods, you just leave your wallet open on the ground and money will fly into it. One last tip, if the mission ends and not all of the bolts have gone to your total yet, those bolts will disappear. So if you go to weapon select just before the timer stops, the game will finish processing the bolts that wouldn't have the challenge abruptly ended. Then you restart and repeat like a madman. So there's my tips for abusing the mechanics of the game to get super strong and super rich super quick.
That's a major oversight, dude. I need to check if that's real or not. Finally something I can write down. Right? Bolts not tallied into your totals will disappear if time, or will disappear if challenge ends. When, probably.
Then you restart and repeat like a madman.
Oh,
so
maybe it's
tips
specific
for abusing
to
the
that
mechanics
one,
of the game
maybe?
to get super strong and super rich super quick.
Between the more developed level up system
That
and
might
the
be
emphasis
specific to that one, actually, now that I think about it. Question mark? Or is it just for that one challenge? It's real. I can definitely confirm that myself as well. Finally, some game exploits. I gotta have to actually check that out because that's a major oversight.
on modding weapons, Ratchet Deadlocked definitely has the most customizable weapon selection in the entire series. While that's great and a nice change of pace, the weapons themselves are pretty boring. Almost all of them are ideas we've seen in the previous games. Don't get me wrong, going commando and up your arsenal didn't have entirely original weapons either, but they at least threw in a couple of fresh new ideas along with reliable
this
favorites.
editing is way too
Ratchet
fast, dude.
Deadlock's arsenal just lacks the personality or creativity that defined the previous entries. The most important thing is that the weapons function properly, which they undoubtedly do, but nonetheless, I can't help but find myself a little disappointed with the selection here.
I'll save most of my thoughts on the combat for later, but I will say I do actually like most of the weapons in this game. Yeah, they aren't as wacky as in past games which had a sort of Looney Tunes-esque quality to them, but that feel was slowly being lost anyway as it got more detailed and extreme looking in each game. This is just the next logical step. I'll take something like the Dwarf Vipers over the Combustor, which has appeared in many other games that follow this. Like, it's one thing when they disguise weapons that are essentially the same from game to game, your typical machine gun, bombs, rocket launcher, and sniper rifle, but then there's reusing literally the same weapon designs in multiple games because Insomniac wants to make them like some sort of symbol for the series, and that's always...
Ew. I'm pretty sure it's a coincidence, but the gameplay mixed with the badass OSTs seems like the inspiration for Doom 2016 gameplay mixed with OSTs. Probably a coincidence, yeah. I wouldn't read too much into it.
Disappointing me a little bit. Part of the fun of earlier Ratchet & Clank games is getting to see what the next machine gun will look like, what the next rocket launcher will look like. You always want to see what the artists in Insomniac will come up with next, how they'll have managed to outdo themselves again, and how much more overkill it'll look than the previous game's iteration of that type of weapon. It's the same case here. But after using these sorts of guns in 3 other games, I understand if it starts to get old for people.
Unlike previous games where Ratchet & Clank visited a number of alien worlds to complete story missions and advance the plot, Deadlocked sees a solo Ratchet and his 2 BattleBots advancing through a series of Dread Zone gauntlets before facing off with a rival Gladiator in a tournament. Completing a tournament increases Ratchet's rank, allowing him to advance to tougher challenges. The face-offs with the other Gladiators are built up very well using the series' trademark satire of a consumer society, again giving you that extra incentive to push through the gauntlets and eventually take on the next Gladiator. Gauntlets generally take place on the different planets of the Shadow Sector, while tournaments take place back at the Dread Zone Battle Dome. The biggest problem with this game structure is definitely the pacing. The first tier of Dread Zone is by far the longest, featuring 3 planets and 2 tournaments, so it took me about 2 hours or so to beat. The other tiers only have 2 planets and 1 tournament, and they just seem to get shorter and shorter as the game went on. In my opinion, the tiers should have gotten longer and longer to accentuate the build up to the final confrontation with Ace Hardlight.
You're totally missing how it's pressed for time they were. I mean, it doesn't make... I don't think criticisms like this make sense with the background information readily available that they had no time. Because it's like, cut them a little bit of slack. For what it's worth, I think what they did with the time they had is more impressive than what they couldn't... or more impressive than... how was I going to word that? I think that you shouldn't have the game length as a criticism, or the pacing in this case, because of the length, when you take into consideration how much time they spent on it. That's what I was trying to say. I'm still mad at EXO for putting that god-awful 2016 image. I absolutely need to see an eye doctor after that. Don't stick a fork in your eyes, dude. Please.
Yeah, this issue is even more exacerbated when you realize that the first Gladiator, Shellshock, is an entire world where you encounter him several times dedicated to hyping him up, while the other 3 fight you once back at Dread Zone after a few forgettable mini-challenges. Just giving each of these other Gladiators their own planet to fight them on would have been enough to round things out, I think. After you defeat Shellshock, the game falls into a sort of rhythm, a pattern, and it starts to feel like you're going through the motions. I'm not saying they should have had a ton of more levels, but at least 3 worlds per Gladiator instead of 2 would have increased the game's length substantially.
Oh my god, this is like Morrowind. This is like an Elder Scrolls game, dude.
Substantially.
The bigger problem is one I'll be discussing a lot in future reviews, the game's overall length. Ratchet Deadlocked only has about a dozen locations to visit, and I essentially beat the whole thing in an afternoon. It's funny that Nick mentioned the later Gladiators not having planets, because it does seem that at least 2 levels were cut from the game in order to meet a fall release. Let me be clear, game length is not the only thing that matters when evaluating a game's quality, but Ratchet Deadlocked feels somewhat lacking in content compared with the previous games. A large part of that is Deadlock's focus on combat. You know the arena challenges from going commando and up your arsenal where you just beat the shit out of waves of enemies for experience and bolts? Deadlocked seems born of a desire to flesh this out into a full-fledged game. That means that there are no Clank puzzle sections, no giant Clank beat-em-up sections, no gadget-based puzzle sections, no race.
One thing I wish though is that they had more of those unique challenges, like weapon swaps and stuff like that. That's the only real criticism I can come up with, though.
Minigames, or any of the other things that made Ratchet & Clank such a diverse and unique experience. Levels take the form of campaigns where Ratchet must fulfill a series of objectives while destroying enemies and collecting bolts along the way. While these challenges can involve many things, most of the time it boils down to winding a bunch of bolt cranks or blowing stuff up while covering your battle bots. The good news is that...
Honestly, I'm not sure which of the 2 are worse. And any image from 2016 and any AI image you can think of. Let's combine them, huh? Ask an image generator to make a image of Ratchet and Clank 2016, but good. See if you can manage that.
Deadlocked.
That's how you know that the robots will take over, right? If you can do that,
implements a radar, which makes locating objectives straightforward and painless. Other challenges take the form of vehicle sections where Ratchet can mount a walking tank, a hover ship, a hover bike, or an armored car to blow shit up. These vehicles control absolutely beautifully and offer some much appreciated variety. Boss fights return in the form of competing gladiators, but with the exception of the last two,
2016 did 9/11 confirmed.
They didn't give me that much trouble at all. Part of that's because I'm pretty experienced with Ratchet and Clank at this point, and I did pick a mid-range difficulty, but they don't really stand out much. After finishing the campaign for that world, you'll unlock a series of dread challenges, which are similar to the arena.
AI image combined with the 2016 game. Are you trying to destroy the entire planet? Every PC in existence will gain sentience just to destroy themselves.
Missions from the previous games. In order to
That's
unlock
how the world
further
goes
worlds
under.
in the game, you have to clear at least some of these challenges to increase your dread points. These missions can range from a score attack game in the Landstalker where you try to mortar as many targets as possible to clear a score cap, to time attack sections where you drive through rings, to just clearing even more waves of enemies. To be honest though, the dread challenges are all pretty easy, and it's easier to get the points you need by just clearing every new mission as it comes out. You are allowed to grind points by clearing old missions if you want to, but you'll get substantially less points than you did the first time around.
Yeah, I pretty much agree. The only thing I'd add is that these dread missions are a great place to milk huge amounts of bolts and XP from enemies in relatively little time.
Apart from that, there's really not much else to say about Ratchet Deadlocked gameplay-wise. You unlock a challenge mode upon beating the game, as always, which allows you to max out your stats, further upgrade your weapons, purchase new mods, and play on the game's highest difficulty. This does help Ratchet Deadlocked to extend playtime somewhat, and it's certainly a fun time sink, but it's no substitute for the cut content.
A couple of other things worth noting.
How would you know that? How would you know that it's not a substitute for the cut content when the cut content doesn't exist?
Skill points are handled differently in this game. There's a lot of them, and they usually involve killing a certain amount of enemies a certain way, with a certain weapon or mod or whatever. It's a good way to earn some extra bolts on the side. Collect enough skill points and you can unlock various other skins and even weather effects and mirror mode and sepia tone and the like. There's a lot of cool stuff to check out here, and I'd say it's worth getting all those skill points, at least on challenge mode.
Overall, while the gameplay is certainly a lot of fun for what it is, and
Overall, the what?
Sepia tone and the like. There's a lot of cool stuff to check out here, and I'd say it's worth getting all those skill points, at least on challenge mode.
Overall, while the gameplay is certainly
The what?
It's worth getting all those skill points, at least on challenge mode.
Overall, while the gameplay is
Well, it is Pride Month.
Certainly a lot of fun for what it is, and I did really enjoy the ride while it lasted. Ratchet Deadlocked is probably one of my lesser favorite games in the whole series. I appreciate that Insomniac wanted to do something different with the franchise. I really do. By the time I got to Crack in Time, I was feeling a serious case of franchise fatigue, and Ultra One and Full Frontal Assault weren't necessarily the answer to that problem. But Deadlocked doesn't really innovate so much as it rips a whole bunch of stuff out and focuses on doing mostly one thing. It does that one thing with flying colors, and it's enough to carry an entire
He said the gay play. Get it?
game, but it just makes me wish I was playing a proper Ratchet & Clank game instead. Yes,
play.
The gunplay was a large part of what made the previous entries so much fun to play, but it was by no means the only thing. What makes Ratchet & Clank so unique, memorable, and replayable was also the crazy over-the-top weapons, the fun platforming, the kooky gadgets, the multiple paths in every planet, the occasional Clank section, etc., etc.
This video is over 7 years old, so I'm sure his opinion on the game has changed over time. Maybe. Sex is just a spectrum, right, bro? Right, bro. Totally.
When you take out all that stuff, you're left with just the skeleton and not a fleshed out gaming experience. That's why I'd honestly prefer to revisit the original Ratchet & Clank over Ratchet Deadlocked. Sure, that game is messy and has its problems, but it still feels like a more complete game with a more interesting story and more memorable set pieces. Ratchet Deadlocked.
Just want to reiterate, it sounded like I made fun of that, but I don't actually care. Just so you know.
Deadlocked is still a good game for what it is. It has excellent visuals, the soundtrack is badass, the plot's got some great things going for it, and like I said, the core gameplay...
Is it just regurgitating? It's just bringing up old points again.
Is great for what it's trying to be. It's just missing all the other little things that make Ratchet & Clank what it is. I could recommend it to fans of the series who are looking for something different, but if you're wondering whether it's worth playing before moving on to the future series, I'd say you wouldn't miss out on much if you chose to skip it.
That's how you pronounce it.
Okay, now it's my turn to give my thoughts on the game. Like I said, this is one of the first Ratchet & Clank games I ever played, along with the original and Tools of Destruction. I didn't feel betrayed or let down or whatever when I got the Deadlocked. It was just another side of Ratchet, like the other games I was playing. I can see why you'd think this game is kinda bare bones, and you're not wrong for thinking that, but this is a game that had to be made at least once. If they didn't make this game now, they would have released a game like it on the PS3 or PSP or whatever, and honestly, for this type of game, I think Deadlocked, cut content aside, turned out about as well as a combat-focused Ratchet game could have. But that's not my big defense of this game. I acknowledge that it's a fairly shallow game that strips away almost everything else people love about the series and makes it about just shooting stuff. What I'm saying is, I don't count that as a con. This is due to one observation I've made that sort of made things click for me. Most Ratchet & Clank games, to me anyway, are basically 3D Mega Man games. Going Commando is the best example. The balance of platforming and gunplay perfectly replicates that jump and shoot man kind of thing in 3D. And there's other touches, like the hover boots feeling like some stupidly overpowered dash boots from the X series, and the hoverbike races are reminiscent of the Ride Chaser segments. You get different suits of armor that increase your defense and make you look cooler. The dynamo is sort of like the Nine Beam, but I might be reaching there. And even the more insane weapons feel like some power you'd pick up from a Robot Master or a Maverick boss. Just replace the ammo count with an energy meter, and there you go. Bam! It's a perfectly serviceable 3D Mega Man game. And much in the same vein, Ratchet Deadlocked is a 3D Metal Slug game.
But like, yeah, it's like you can make that comparison with Jak and Daxter too. It's not. That's a really weird.
You know
comparison.
what I'm talking about. If you like old school Mega Man games but don't care for Metal Slug, you'll probably regard this game in much the same way. But if you do love the Metal Slug series with its minimal platforming and constant gunplay, you'll find a lot to love here. Now true, we did sort of get a 3D Metal Slug game on the PS2, but we don't talk about that here. This game is much better. The enemy types and their behaviors are pretty ideal for a hypothetical 3D Metal Slug, from the grunts to the dropships to the bigger enemies that take a lot of rounds to kill. The weapons are pretty fitting too. The Hunter Mine Launcher is how I'd imagine the Iron Lizard would ideally function in a 3D space, and the Orbital works fine as a, rocket launcher. Even the vehicles, from the way they fire to the way they control, feel like 3D versions of various slugs, and it works. Another thing, remember how beautifully animated and detailed all the explosions are in those games? Well, the explosions in this game are glorious. And this is important, like, say what you will about this game, these people knew the parts of it they had to get right. So they made a game about blowing things up. It's a good thing then that they made the act of blowing things up feel amazing. I don't think I'll ever get tired of this game. While on the shorter side, it just makes it easier for me to replay over and over again without it dragging on. You can make the explosions even bigger with a modding system, as if they weren't big enough already. And, that's basically it. That's everything I could think of to talk about. There's a lot more to this game than people might think. Although the gameplay itself may be pretty simple, it's a beautiful kind of simplicity. It just depends on what your needs are as a gamer and what you're looking for in certain games. And if you like those shooty bang bang simple pleasure power trip kind of games like Metal Slug, you'll like this mindless shoot fest too. If it's not your thing, and you just want another traditional RNC game, then you can probably live without this one and jump to Tools of Destruction.
And that pretty much wraps up our thoughts on Ratchet Deadlocked. I've got to say though, Nick, it's probably a good thing we did this review together. Even if it isn't one of my favorite Ratchet & Clank games, I still really enjoyed it for what it was. And who knows if I would have checked it out if you hadn't reminded me to.
Hey, no problem, man.
It's like an angry video game.
This game's been on my to-do list for
acting.
years. I was gonna do it eventually.
At least this guy looks a bit more natural in front of the camera,
you know,
right?
once I found the motivation to do it sooner or later. But having someone with a different perspective to bounce off of and have this little back and forth, that always makes things more entertaining. So, thanks for having me aboard, and enjoy Tools of Destruction. Tools, everybody.
Until next time.
Oh my god! More hidden content.
Destruction. Tools, everybody.
Oh no. Oh no, he's getting criticized for using fades. It's rockerific. Definitely a way I'd not describe something. Fun fact, when I first played 2016, I enjoyed myself back then, but at the time I just turned my brain off. Nowadays, I try to keep a calm mind, fair to criticize, and give credit where credit is due. I played through half of 2016, and I couldn't anymore.
Until next time, I
got to Rilgar, and then I was like, yeah, no, I'm gonna go.
I'm Gamer, and I hope you all enjoyed the collab.
Playing fucking Donkey Kong music in the end. By the way, completely out of topic, you think Spyro has any chance now that Activision is owned by Microsoft? They're probably gonna sell Spyro, dude. I don't know. Probably not. I mean, it had that Toys for Bob remake, right? And that saw a decent exposure and sales, I think. But I don't know, man. I hope so. I mean, gaming does need more character platformers, right? It would be cool to see Spyro again in a new game, like Crash. But I'm not holding my hopes up. Anyways, do we have any final thoughts on the video? Yeah, Toys for Bob is an indie studio, actually. They might license the Spyro license out to them. CGE says Spyro 4 is in development at least as of January of this year, but who knows whether or not that ends up getting cancelled. Yeah, who knows? Who's CGE, by the way? Also, it is Microsoft. Those fuckers shut down Tango Gameworks, so we're never probably gonna see a Hi-Fi Rush 2, which is Canadian guy, eh? Is that his name? There's someone on Nax or something? Yeah, Microsoft shut down Tango Gameworks and then proceeded to, right afterwards, say that games like Hi-Fi Rush is what we need. It just doesn't make sense. It's so fucking stupid. He's like one of those Spyro tubers that covers anything Crash or Spyro related. Oh, cool. Not really into that scene a lot. Anyways, yeah, do we have any final thoughts on the video? I mean, I'm so tired of these videos just being summarizing stuff. I don't think... Yeah, I don't really wrote down a single thing. I wrote down one thing, which is that whole bolts not being tallied into your totals when the challenge ends, but that's kind of up in the air if it's just in that one challenge or if it happens in every challenge, because if so, that's a huge oversight. But other than that, it's just a lot of summarizing stuff. It feels like. Final thoughts? My name Jeff. Yeah, hell yeah, dude. I love that you predicted that Hi-Fi Rush would have a higher grade than Starfield, and rightfully so, because they killed the franchise. Yeah, I know, right? Even in the video, I was like smugly saying that Hi-Fi Rush would be the better rated Bethesda published game that year. And I was so right. I love it. And then they went and shut down the fucking studio. Those sons of bitches. Well, it was entertaining as always to see you agree, disagree, or be surprised by whatever they've all said. Thank you, Jabriz. Honestly, this is my favorite part of the creative process, and it's basically because of the people that are here watching it along with me and chatting. So yeah, I really appreciate you all taking the time out of your day to come and watch and interact, because I really enjoy it. This is my favorite part of the entire thing. At least the work process. Thanks for the stream, fam. Best of luck in the video. Thank you. Thank you. And with that, I guess we'll call it quits for the work streams for Ratchet Deadlocked. This is a fun format. Yeah, I think so too. I'm just wholesale stealing it from Pat, but yeah, it's really fun. And it's also a way to get some more content out, even if it's just for the algorithm. Anyways, it's got very YouTube heavy at certain points, but whatever, it's fine. Anyways, thanks everyone for joining me. I really appreciate it. And yeah, see you guys later. Hope you'll join me for the next Workstream series. I had a lot of fun too, Clay. See you around. Bye.